Welcome, everyone, to a very special edition of Cus I Wanna. Though, first of all, it's not a Cus I Wanna, it's a Cus We Wanna. And to tell you the truth, I don't know if wanna is the right word for either of us today, or if it's more of a feeling of shoulda, as Matt and I have many times over the last couple of years paired up on politically significant events that were about to unfold. I know we did when Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away, and I know there's a couple others. And then obviously we've covered the elections together. And while I think we might actually be here to shit on a lot of people's good day, rain on a lot of people's parades, I don't think it's deniable that next week may turn out to be a very politically consequential week. Before we get started, I'm Jimmy Snow. This is Matt Dillahunty. Matt, how are you?
I'm doing well, all things considered. I got a lot of stuff done. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to join you, but I got it all done so I can be here and, I don't know, help you rain on people's parades.
It's going to be, I think there's going to be some of that. So let's just say we've got the lines open, 720-619-2288. There's a web link as always. People, if you want to call in with disagreements or agreements, or if you want to, I don't care that much to hear if you're just calling in to say, like, whatever you just said, I'm on board with. That's right. But if you disagree, you think that we're off. And to tell you the truth, as it is the line and it's Matt and I, and we have the Sunday show tomorrow anyway, if you're one of the people who I've been fighting with on Twitter and you're stopping by going, I was going to call in about religion, you can still do that. I'd almost be excited to distract from tonight's topic with a quick theological debate. But I suppose diving right into the matter, I said the number, right? Yeah. There's a phone number at the bottom of the screen if you need a reminder of it.
Word.
Yeah. The topic today, we have been told by Donald Trump, which therein already lies our first problem, but by Donald Trump, that there is an expectation, not because his legal team is currently speaking to the Southern District of New York, but through something that he says has leaked, which already raises suspicion. But that there is an expectation that this coming Tuesday, he will be arrested and or indicted by the Southern District of New York. Now, anybody who is excited for the potential of a Mar-a-Lago handcuff, perp walk, none of that is going to happen. Even if he is arrested on Tuesday, the way it would look is he will arrive to the Southern District of New York. He will arrive at some legal place. It probably won't be the typical place that people turn themselves in. He will have his mugshot made, which will be very interesting if that gets put out publicly. And things will be arranged, charges will be read, and he will leave that place. He's not going to go to jail as he awaits trial. He will be in and out in the same amount of time that the average person waits behind 8 cars at a McDonald's. It will not take long for him to be in and out of that situation. But I suppose we could start by actually showing the truths, which is what it is called on Truth Social. The Sam's Club Twitter, the Sam's Club tweets, that was the wrong order to do this. First, we merged this, and then we bring them in, that have indicated that this is happening. And it is a 2-part tweet. It's a very interesting 2-part tweet because this part 2 is the one that actually mentions that they are going to arrest him. However, part 1 doesn't at all. It's in all caps. I will spare you all yelling it into the mic, but it says our nation is a third world and dying. The American dream is dead. The radical left anarchists have stolen. The radical left anarchists, I just love that phrase, have stolen our presidential election, and with it, the heart of our country, 2 hours. American patriots are being arrested and held in captivity like animals, while criminals and leftist thugs are allowed to roam the streets, killing and burning with no retribution. Millions are flooding through our open borders. Many from prisons and mental institutions. Crime and inflation are destroying our very way of life. Continues in a second quote-unquote truth with this. Now illegal leaks from a corrupt and highly political Manhattan District Attorney's Office, which has allowed new records to be set in violent crime and whose leader is funded by George Soros, indicate that with no crime being able to be proven and based on an old and fully debunked by numerous other prosecutors fairy tale, the far and away leading Republican candidate and former president of the United States of America will be arrested on Tuesday of next week. Protest, take our nation back. And I think those last 5 words are the entire reason Matt and I are doing what should be called a "cuz we shoulda" rather than a "cuz I wanna" tonight. Matt, your initial thoughts before we shit on maybe we begin shitting on everybody's parade now.
You seem to put some doubt on this because you're getting the information from Donald Trump, but I heard about all this before Trump, like yesterday, where what had gotten leaked. So he's right that there was a leak. Was essentially that someone in the New York office had reached out to the Secret Service. Now, Trump himself may be the leak, but they reached out to the Secret Service saying, hey, if hypothetically we're going to indict Trump next week, how would we be handling it with the security and everything else? Because that's all what the Secret Service does. There's a lot of things about this that I'm disappointed in and not particularly excited about, but I what's going to happen is Tuesday or whatever day they do this, he's going to be indicted, probably arraigned, picture, fingerprints. None of that's going to be on the news. The only thing that's going to be on the news is him casually walking in, because he's already said his lawyer said he was going to surrender himself. You're going to have him casually walking in, and then you're going to have talking heads on the news, I suppose, like us, only with, maybe more information, speculating about what's going to happen now, what's going to happen now, what's going to happen now, what's going to happen. And then within a couple of hours, he's going to, if not quicker, he's going to leave because they're not going to. Now, they may put travel restrictions on him. I'd be surprised if they even bothered to ask. I mean, he's the former president of the United States. He has, despite the fact that he's not nearly as rich as he suggests, he does have means. And so he could go. But is he a flight risk? I would say even I don't think that Donald Trump is a flight risk now. He doesn't think he's done anything wrong. He likes the attention. He thinks this is going to be good for 2024. And who knows? Maybe it will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe indicting him for something, because right now my first take on this is this feels like someone who wants to be able to say, I was the first one to indict Donald Trump.
There's some weird things about it. So I don't mean to imply that I think it's not happening, but I do find it very, very strange that his the thing he is pointing to is, again, the idea of this leak when presumably, like you mentioned, the Secret Service would have coordinated, but also his legal team would have coordinated for a charge like this. You would expect the two of them to be speaking. If the lawyer is saying he will surrender himself, it's a weird thing that I would expect Trump, the moment he finds out he's getting indicted, from his legal team to come out and say that's what's happening. I would have expected him to not even call it a leak at that point. So there is something very strange to me about it's happening on Tuesday, and I know that according to a leak. And again, it could be that the indictment is planning to be issued on Tuesday, but his actual turning himself in for processing maybe would be a different day. Arrest, obviously, is a term that people are visually imagining an arrest, like he's going to be put in handcuffs in front of cameras, that he's going to be marched out of Mar-a-Lago or something like that. And that's simply not going to happen. And so there is just something very strange about it, but I don't know whether or not it is to be the first person. That does seem like it's one of the possibilities. The thing about what he's being indicted for is that it's not, of all of the things for which he deserves indictment, this is the lightest one. This one is he potentially violated campaign finance law by mischaracterizing where campaign finances went to basically be able to pay off Stormy Daniels in exchange for in exchange for silence, an NDA, a sort of rich person's loophole on prostitution. You can't pay a person for sex in America, but you can pay them to keep their mouth shut about the sex they had with you. I already a double standard in the U.S., but not important here. And it's the type of thing where this is so light compared to summoning a mob for sedition, compared to really obstruction of justice, and the potential multiple counts of obstruction of justice, according to Robert Mueller. It's just weird that this is the one that's going to be first, and now apparently will be the one that he is going to resort to summoning a mob, potentially again, to a place. Though these protests no significant protest anyway has begun yet. I think there are people near Mar-a-Lago doing some stuff, but it hasn't resulted in an immediate response of any significant kind. However, just now in a post-January 6th world, to hear it end with, what was the exact phrasing again? Protest, take our nation back, sort of alluding to his old, you're not going to have a country anymore. That's what happens. You're not going to have a country anymore. Stuff. The thing I am the most concerned about isn't this indictment. I worry that it's not even an achievable. If they don't have an airtight case, that's an easy win. This was stupid to do, to even take a risk on. Yeah.
It will absolutely backfire.
Yeah. Yeah. It's if there's any doubts, and again, of all the things they could have indicted him for. So there's some people who are, and I think that the person who's waiting on the line to talk, maybe we just take this call, because I think this person is actually going to pose the possibility of the thing I was about to mention. So let's go ahead and take Zach in Denver, my old stomping grounds. Zach in Denver, how you doing?
What's up? How are you guys?
Just delightful. You had a point about what you think is the motivation behind an indictment of Trump right now.
I do, but I also think this will be really quick because I agree with everything you guys have said so far about the arrest being like pretty much a joke, because he will pretty much just go down to the station, say, "Hey, what's up, cops?" and then walk out like an hour and a half later.
He might bring them McDonald's.
Right. And you might bring some donuts and coffee.
That's not a joke. I would not surprise if he turns that into a Blue Lives Matter photo op moment where they arrive and walk in and there's somebody with giant McDonald's bags, fully within the realm of plausibility.
So fully possible.
Yeah.
But I think that the main thing is kind of like Matt was saying, is that somebody in New York who's in charge of the indictments is like, I'm going to be the one to get Trump. I'm going to be the guy, and so he wants to use this as almost like a political stunt or political move to increase his position in whatever Justice Department he's a part of, but then also he maybe has the hope that it will prevent Trump from running in 2024. If that makes sense.
Right, which there's political debate around, depending on the category of crime, would it actually fully prevent him from running? But potentially as a felony, it could. And so you're saying you think it's both motivations? The guy who's I can't remember his name off the top of my head now, but I've been hearing his name all day. But the guy in the SDNY, is he doing it because he wants to be the guy, or because he just wants to do anything to prevent Trump from running again?
I don't know who it is because I haven't done a lot of research on it. But I'm just saying that makes the most sense to me, because I don't know if you guys are familiar with the term Trump derangement syndrome. I don't think that's necessarily a real thing, but I think certain people can go a little bit overboard in how much they dislike Trump. I don't think criticizing him is a bad thing, but I think if it takes up a majority of your life and you dedicate your job as that's the one thing you're going to go after, I think that's kind of the situation we're in with this guy in New York. That makes sense. Without
researching it, that sounds like a whole lot of very heavy assertions to make, because I can't tell you you're wrong, because I equally haven't Alvin Bragg. Yeah. I equally have not. Oh yeah, you're also right. It's the Manhattan DA, not SDNY. SDNY is investigating him for other stuff. Alvin Bragg is the DA, and he's the one that people believe, that he has a personal hatred of him. As far as the categories you've just provided, that's quite a bit, Zach, to...
Because I'm not necessarily saying that he has TDS, because I'm not a doctor, or like I'm not like a psychologist. I can't take somebody's opinion. But if I was a...
Well, TDS isn't a real diagnosis, for the record.
Right,
it doesn't take a doctor to
it's
diagnose.
Right. I'm not trying to claim that it's a real thing either. I'm just saying like that's the best term that I can use to describe what I'm talking about, if that makes sense. But if I was in charge of a court, like if I was a judge or if I was a prosecutor, and I was looking at, okay, what's the worst possible thing that you can do to somebody? Like you can murder somebody, you can steal from them, or you can pay a porn star hush money to be quiet about having sex with you. Like I think that's not necessarily like something that I would go after somebody for. It's like asking, would you vote for JFK if they indicted him for something with Marilyn Monroe? It's like, no.
Zach, I feel bad because you do seem very nice. And again, you started with agreeing with us on everything. You are fundamentally incorrect about some things here. And the first one being paying a porn star hush money is not the illegal thing he did.
Well,
we agree aren't, I think, the same, apparently, on what we agree on, because...
No, I do.
As far as
it is the same.
When you categorize like, okay, a person could murder somebody, a person could do this, a person could do that. Am I going to go after that with somebody? In a lot of ways, it is more important to show that Donald Trump isn't allowed to break laws because he was the president.
But
categorically, go ahead. Sure.
Let me finish my point real quick. So, because my whole point is that it's a political move, right? So I'm trying to get there. When he's comes out and is on Twitter saying, "Oh, the radical left is doing this, the radical left is doing that," it almost helps him to be in a position of I don't know, doing things that seem nitpicky, if that makes sense, instead of going after like an actual crime. Like if you went after him for like the obstruction of justice thing or something that to do with Ukraine and not giving them weapons or something like that, that would be a heavier thing to go after him for than something that seems like to a lot of lay people like not a minor thing is of stealing money from the people who are donating to your campaign, but a minor thing of the stuff that the Stormy Daniels part of that to a lay person is the part that's gonna seem nitpicky, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that doesn't matter. Whether or not lay people are understanding the legal theory, the question is something special happening? Wait a second, I waited for you. Is something special happening because somebody is motivated to get this done, regardless of whether or not there's actually a strong legal foundation to do so? And it appears to be the case that they are trying to try something that generally the what's the phrase for the term of the amount of period of time, the statute of limitations has passed for a crime like this, but trying to recategorize it and then take something that's happening at one level and push it through a different level, and they may not be able to mix up, and that it is almost apparently some type of clever word game to make their, if anyway, I feel like it's a pedantic legal theory in the same way that I get annoyed with pedantic word games for people who call in to prove they're God. Now, that said, it may be that next week the indictment is released and everything I just said was completely wrong. That there is testimony and that there are things about this case that we fundamentally don't know. But with the information we do know so far, and nobody's setting an expectation that there is going to be any bombshells, it does smell of trying to do something too quickly to be the person, either to be the person or just to be a person to stop Trump from running again. Or there is always the potential of sort of the other somewhat conspiratorial thinking of this is a purposeful attempt to make Donald Trump the nominee because he would be easier to beat than Ron DeSantis. Go ahead, Matt.
I wouldn't view this as an attempt to intentionally make him the nominee. I'm saying that there could be coordination in, we're going to go ahead and do this indictment now here in New York, and that's going to set the stage for the Georgia indictment as well, which then sets the stage for whatever's next after that. And now for a 2024 election. Sorry, what?
I was just saying the Georgia one would be good, because that's
so you interrupted me after I sat here quietly to tell me that the Georgia one would be good. You're right.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I'm just trying to continue. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I don't remember what I was going to say now. That's probably the biggest problem, is that while I can focus on a lot of things and remember a lot of things and have a lot of things to say, once I get interrupted, I'm less likely to remember what it was I was going to say, which is why it tends to irritate me so. But I'm in a really good mood, so it's not going to irritate me at all.
Not today.
What's really happening, we don't know. And I don't think that it would be wise for coordination between individual government or organizations and like New York and Georgia. On the other hand, they may need to. There's only, and what if everybody wanted to serve all their warrants to the same day? And you can't have that. So what I'm saying is, no, pretty much a big nothing is going to happen for the next 4 or 5 weeks. But starting next week, when they actually do arrest him, that's going to start a period of a lot of talk. And I would imagine we're going to have this conversation over and over again, because I think this particular one in New York, is the least impressive, the least problematic, the one that's going to have the least negative impact on Trump. Even if he were to be convicted of inappropriately using funds from the campaign to do this, I don't see that he's going to get in any trouble for it, and I don't even see that it would stop him from being, the nominee for 2024. But because once you've begun this conspiracy theorist, defense of, this is just the liberals, they're coming after us for some fantasy that was disproved and debunked, and it's just like, well, they're busy shouting her emails. In his case, he gets Russia, and nothing ever comes of it. So he looks even more right to his followers, to his supporters.
Go ahead, Zach.
So I agree with all of that. And I also agree with the investigation being done in the first place. My point is not that the investigation shouldn't be done. My point isn't that I think it's dumb. But my point is that, kind of like Matt is saying, is that it's the least important of the issues that you could be going after him for. And the only reason that they would be doing it to begin with, you can say that they're really interested in his finances, but they've been interested in his finances since 2016, the first time that he got elected, and they wanted to go into his taxes, and they wanted to go into how he's funding his campaign. That was a big point that he was trying to make, that it's all self-funded, and he was getting money from other places and even foreign countries. So my point being is, like, I agree with the investigations. I don't like Trump. I'm not trying to do a conspiracy theorist defense of him. My conspiracy theory, if you want to put it that way, is that they're using an indictment that's not that important to make it seem more important, so that their candidate, and when I say their, I mean the Democrats, their candidate, Joe Biden, can seem better in comparison to Trump, because Trump's been arrested and Joe hasn't, if that makes sense.
It seems that you're saying the Democrats arranged this. That's not how the district attorney of New York works.
No, I know, but a lot of people in New York are Democrats. I'm not saying that the party went out and decided to do this. I'm saying that their personal political beliefs might influence what they do in their job.
Now, what you suggested now twice is that the Democratic Party somehow arranged for this to happen. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense, because if all you're saying is the Democratic Party is A-OK with the district attorney or the attorney general of New York, bringing charges, Well, yeah, but that's a big nothing. That's like saying Georgia would be nice.
I also
Not
would
that
add the concept that they needed to draw a contrast between the characters of Joe Biden, where the next election would be basically one we've already done before. We've done a Biden versus Trump before. It is an odd theory to me as well. If anything, it seems like a legal ploy to potentially, if you can associate the felony they're trying to push with one of the few types of felonies which can prevent you from running for president. That's the only legal motive, the only sort of motivation I could see somebody trying to pull off. I'm not suggesting that is what's going on, but just to say, like, this is to prove he's better than Biden. I think a lot of Trump supporters know Biden is better than Trump. It's not that hard. It's not that hard a contrast to write. It's a strange motivation in my mind.
I'd agree with you that it's not a hard contrast to draw, but it's another arrow in the quiver, so to speak, of another card that they can throw out and say, hey, here's another thing. Kind of like January 6th, like the January 6th committee. I'm do think that needed to happen so people understand like how big of a deal and how wrong that was. But they use that committee all the time as evidence of this is the type of people Trump supporters are. This is why you can't watch Tucker Carlson. This is why you can't watch Fox News.
Zach, I'll tell you this. I'll bet you this. If Biden, if no other indictment comes down besides this one, I'll bet you Biden doesn't mention an indictment at all. I don't think that this is, I don't think that they see this as a comparable. He may have committed, there's other campaign finance fraud investigations right now, right? Like all of
You don't think you would mention an arrest during the campaign trail?
No, not this one. Not this one. This one is that pathetic. I think they wouldn't. It would be too high risk, especially if the charges are dropped or he prevails. It would be way too high of a risk.
So they mentioned golden showers during the campaign trails during 2016.
Joe Biden did not once mention golden showers.
Joe Biden didn't, but
I've
on
only
the news,
mentioned Biden.
Which is what he's saying.
Elected officials in Congress did.
I only said Biden.
Okay, I'm just saying that it's. My point is, for a larger party perspective, I understand that.
How many people's votes do you think they changed on golden showers?
I think they changed a lot of people because the average person is very fickle and watches TikTok, right? So if they see somebody and they say something that they don't like, they'll be like, oh, I don't like you, so I'm going to vote this way, if that makes sense. So I think the average person...
I bet I can tell how old you're not by you thinking that the average person watches TikTok.
Okay, how old do you think I am?
24.
I'm a few years younger than that. I'm 22, but
Ooh.
Accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think, if anything, the golden showers thing ended up being a bad ploy because there was never any proof of it. And there is enough doubt now that they've been able to sow around that entire Russian dossier thing that, if anything, they've been able to use the victimization of Donald Trump. Look at this British spy who's now been indicted of this and this was the person who said golden showers, to the point where I'm not still convinced he didn't have some hookers pee on themselves in Russia. However, it has not worked to our favor to have that out there. And one hopes for a party that would learn their lesson on such a thing, which is probably why you have Matt and I here tonight disappointed that, at least I won't speak for Matt, there seems to be fundamental missing of lessons learned over the last few years, unless the conspiracy, I'll use a different term for it, unless the idea that this is to begin a domino effect of other indictments coming down, because I can see the value in that. I can see the value in, you do it in New York, you do it in a highly democratic place. Not that many people are going to travel to protest. Whatever the protest is going to look like is going to be the smallest version of that protest, even if it ends up being very big, which means by the time you roll out other indictments, there's now weariness. There's now people who are bored of it and will lessen the others. Otherwise, I don't have much of a good reason for this indictment, if any.
For clarity, since I can watch chat, I wasn't suggesting that there weren't a lot of TikTok users. The stereotyping of most people watch TikTok implies most people watch and base and focus on political things on TikTok rather than just here's some hair tips, here's a game thing, here's a funny thing. The percentage of users that are getting their political information off TikTok, well, it's already scary that it's as high as it was.
That they got their political information.
Then if that wasn't your implication, it was stupid to bring it up, because you might as well. No. If your thing is most people use TikTok, you are making an implication there about how TikTok impacts those people's political understanding. Are you not?
No.
Then why the fuck would you bring it up in that conversation?
I'm trying to tell you why.
Okay.
The reason I brought up TikTok is because the average person watches that as a distractionary thing, right? So like what I'm saying is people on average are trying to get plugged out of politics. They don't care about what what Hillary Clinton says about this or what Obama says about that. They care that they get free health care, or they care that they get free college, or
what
they
the
care
fuck
that
does that have to do with most people will watch TikTok?
My point,
if you don't make a strong, shut up.
I'll finish.
Shut up. If you don't make a strong case for why you brought it up that counters the natural assumption, you are not going to like the rest of this call.
I'll finish. So, again, because they're trying to plug out of politics, they're trying to distract themselves, they watch TikTok. Average people play video games. Average people go to work. Average people watch TV shows. A lot of them aren't really caring about the woke politics or anything like that. But when they see something
I'm done with
that
Zach.
Personally relates to them.
I'm done with you, Zach. I'm no longer listening. I'm done with you.
Okay.
There's just a lot of terms that you're using that I don't, even this phrase average person is sort of wild to me.
Should I not use average person?
Well, I don't know how you're using it, because I don't know that.
What term should I use?
If average is the right term, I don't know, because I can't tell you what the right term for a term I don't know how you're using it is. When you say on average, like the average person, it seems to be that you're saying somewhere in a median, or that most people, if you walk up to the average person, you're going to find out that and you made a couple of claims now. If you walk up to the average person, you're most often going to find out that they don't care about woke issues and that they get some significant amount of fulfillment from TikTok. And then beyond that implies something about those people, that because they're entertained by TikTok.
What I'm trying to imply about I consider myself an average person because, again, I put in my intro that I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I didn't vote for Donald Trump. And in 2016, I voted for Bernie Sanders. So my point is the average person cares about a particular issue to them, and that's what they'll go and vote for. But if they hear something on the news or if they see something on social media that personally offends them, they'll take issue with that, and that might influence their vote. That was the point I was trying to make about the average person watching TikTok, is that the average person doesn't care about politics and that in depth in it on a daily basis, if that makes sense.
There's just still many gaps left, but it doesn't matter. It's I think we'll just leave it there and go to the next one, because now litigating whether or not the TikTok element of it mattered at all, or what average is when you then described yourself as an average, which is very not typical, it's too much to litigate in one night. I'll give you some last words and then we're going to move on.
It's not typical to not care about politics on a daily basis.
Are you suggesting that that's what I'm saying was your non-typical representation of yourself?
What's non-typical?
Zach, I just don't feel like it. Honestly, Zach, I just don't feel like it. But the thing that I was saying that was non-typical that you can take with you if you want, but I'm not going to litigate it again, is being a 22-year-old in America who is neither Republican nor Democrat, who didn't vote for Trump, didn't say you voted for Biden, which I felt like maybe implies you didn't, but I could be wrong. But also you voted for Bernie Sanders in 2016.
Didn't vote. Oh, God.
None of that's typical.
Go away.
Yeah. Take that with you. That's what I was saying was atypical, but clearly categorically we're talking about different things.
Ignore the last didn't vote at all thing. That was half heard.
Do have a good night, Zach. I thought he might say goodbye. I
don't care if he has a good night or not. It's really frustrating. I mean, if you say, oh, here's the thing. If we're talking about politics and what influences people, and then you bring up the TikTok thing, most people watch, or the average people watch TikTok. Okay. Are you suggesting that impacts their political position? No, I think they're doing it to get away from the politics, which fucking impacts their political position. Because now, instead of getting good information, they're doing something else. The whole point of bringing that up, you dishonest, never mind.
Well, he's not here. This is the only thing. The average.
Yeah, it's not fair now. It's not fair now, especially because I don't need to talk to him again. But, it's like I sit here and I'm open, make your case. Cool. I can't prove you're wrong. But when you say something and when you try to make a case that defends your position, I think my position about the average person's political thing is correct. And one of the reasons is that they watch TikTok. And then you try to pretend that you weren't bringing it up to talk about how TikTok impacts either positively or negatively their political position. Then it was like, why the fuck would you bring it up?
Yeah. These calls are always fascinating to me. The ones that start with like, I agree with everything you just said. And then it's like, okay, that doesn't mean this is going to go as good as you think it is.
Yeah, I don't think that's true either. I think, anyway, who the hell knows?
Michael in Illinois. Michael, row your boat ashore. How you doing?
Hey, Jimmy, Matt. How's it going?
It's going good. Put the wrong name up there, but I'll fix that. Hey, you think that there are upsides to the Stormy Daniel payment case?
Yeah, and you sort of just touched on one of my reasons a minute ago. One of the arguments I'd give is that I think Trump is going to kind of shoot his shot with trying to get people out to protest like he did with that truth message. I think it's going to fizzle. I think people aren't going to care that much. They're going to think it's not a big deal in the long run. And he's going to end up with, kind of an impotent public response to this.
That would be great. There's things that could happen next week that will make me change my mind on whether or not that this was a good move or not. And if everybody's already bored of Donald Trump and they don't show up to back him and protest at the DA's office, that'd be tight.
And I think we're going to be able to see his lawyers are going to behave like normal criminal defense lawyers. The Secret Service is going to cooperate. The court is going to be able to handle it. And I think that's going to send a good message to the special counsel and the Georgia DA also, that the world isn't going to collapse on their heads if they go forward with the more serious indictments.
Matt, you were about to say something?
Oh, yeah. Well, no, it's Shannon asked me, not Shannon Q, Shannon Mac, during the Twitch stream today, came in with an interesting question, which was, if he's calling for protests, is it better to have them come out and put on their full January 6th show your ass kind of protest, or would it be better if nobody bothered to show up at all? And I mean, my first response was, I hope there's no actual violence, but of the two of those, I don't know which is preferable, because if nobody shows up, that could be very well be something that causes Trump to lose his shit. And kind of dipping back to the last call for a second, if this news had come out just and surprised everybody, we might have a slightly different take on this. Not vastly different, but a slightly different take. But the fact is, we've been expecting it and waiting and wondering why the fuck it's taking so long, and why what is the problem in New York and in Georgia and all these places? We know what the hell's gone on. Why is this taking forever? And then you've got people, and I'm sorry, because I generally like his content and he is providing good information and news. But then you've got people like Brian Tyler Cohen, who 4 or 5 times a day are posting the most bullshit clickbait. It's over for Trump. Trump implodes. Trump goes viral. Trump does it. He's fucking writing the algorithm, and it personally drives me nuts. I get it. That's the way it works. I'm sure we've got clickbait titles on some of our stuff, although our stuff isn't necessarily news about, the president. But we're exhausted. We lived with him as president for 4 years to the point where we were absolutely bored by every new scandal that came out because nothing ever sticks to him and nothing ever happens. And so we've been bored to tears by every scandalous accusation. And then you've got the people like Brian Tyler Cohen on the left who are just like, it's the end, it's over, it's boom, here's the final straw. And then let me bring on a lawyer so that I can explain to you how it's possibly maybe going to be the final straw when it's never the first straw. Nothing happens. And what I dread most is that if it happens on Tuesday and they arrest him and they arraign him and there's not good video footage of it and he's going to be released and everything else, that this is going to give Brian and some others a parade of new clickbait titles because they've got to, well, now this is the business. Now this is my thing. I've interviewed the president. I've interviewed all these. And Brian blew up. Good for you. But what you're doing in some cases is counterproductive. If all you're going to post all day, every day, you remind me of Rachel Maddow, who I stopped watching years ago. I still like her. I still think she's right on a number of things, but it was, every day it was Trump and Russia, Trump and Russia, Trump and Russia, Trump and Russia. It's so obvious and exhausting, and nothing ever came of it. Not because there's not anything there, but because you guys have blown it up to where everything is super mega viral, the end of blah, 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 tune in today, or else I'll lose my fucking revenue.
Yeah.
You guys are starting to suck.
Michael, just so you know, at some point, Matt stopped looking at your name and started looking in the camera as he was addressing Brian, not you.
Yes.
Oh, no worries. I wasn't taking it as me.
Okay, good enough. Just making sure.
I totally agree. I don't know really Brian's content, but if you're blowing this possible indictment up into that big of a deal, you're out of your mind because like
he's great.
I'm not convinced. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying he's great. It's the clickbait titles that draw people into every day is the final word. He produces great content and good assessments of news. But it's the YouTube algorithm that has turned us all into the most. I'm all in favor. I don't think horror should ever be a pejorative, but it's turned us into the worst types of horrors.
David Pakman I like very much as well too, but he is far too frequently using the term melting down. Now everything is a meltdown, and it's in too many titles at this point. And I as the person who's responsible for making clickbaity titles, if it's too much for me, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I have a lower tolerance.
I'm not convinced I'm right about this, but I'm just offering the position that, for example, I forget which one of you talked about him going in the courthouse and then coming out, and he's going to walk in calmly and out calmly. I'm saying that might actually be a positive thing because he'll be indicted. He's a former president. He'll have been indicted. It will show the country that things aren't going to explode, and the other prosecutors can move forward as they see fit. I also think it's going to be really difficult for him to be indicted for paying a porn star, and then for the Fulton County DA to drop the charges for when we have a recorded phone call of him strong-arming election officials into fraud. Yeah. So I think it might end up being a good thing.
Yeah, his actual meltdown, David Pakman notwithstanding over it, might be productive. And then there's going to be other things that are purely political moves. Like I think Kevin McCarthy earlier today basically said they're going to pursue some sort of investigation into the investigation. And so there's going to be political drawing of look at this process. They're accusing us of corruption, and yet the president's party is trying to use its federal power to basically obstruct justice. There's going to be a lot of that. But there's something to be said about an indictment that comes down. And granted, it's not everybody from the Lincoln Project. George Conway, for example, seems pretty stoked on this whole thing. But then you have people like Mike Pence, who has been more recently very starkly trying to draw a contrast, and at his most recent donor event, basically straight up talked shit about Trump and January 6th. And then earlier today, I saw Bolton was on with, is that guy's name Smirkonish, the CNN guy, bald man on Saturdays? I think his name's Smirkonish. Anyway, he was on basically when those guys are also saying like, yo, this ain't it, when they're very motivated to see him go down for something, especially the stuff surrounding the insurrection. There's something to be said about that too, when the people who, the enemy of my enemies is also like, I don't know about this. It's not a slam dunk. But again, I hope next week we have to do a Cus I Wanna, because Matt and I are both embarrassed at how we didn't see the bigger play. We didn't see they're going to reveal something in the indictment. And we're going to go and say, kind of like we did once before, where it was like the amount of how sad we were at the end of election night was us not listening to our own selves at the beginning of the night, where we literally said, it may look bad when we go to bed tonight, but that's not the end of the election. And then by the end of the night, we were both depressed as hell because we didn't listen to ourselves. I hope that happens next week, that we go, boy, all of that we thought, we were real stupid, because this is an obvious slam dunk, but I don't see a way that that's going to happen.
Well, I want to point out also just a quick fact. I don't know if you remember this, but a few months ago, Alvin Bragg had the special prosecutor who they brought in for this case. The previous DA brought in, Mark Pomerantz, was the special prosecutor. He resigned in protest because, there was election and Vance was gone and now Bragg is in. And Bragg took his foot off the gas on this case so much that it caused the special prosecutor to resign. And I think maybe one other person went with him. So I think Bragg's motivations here are a little hard to read, and to assign it the motivation that he's just trying to be the one to take Trump down doesn't feel quite right, because otherwise I don't think he would have, I don't think that blow up would have happened. I think there's something more going on there. So
Michael, I'll tell you, I think that I'm probably closer to you on that than other people. I don't remember if Matt had said that was what he was worried about. But as I think about it too, I would rather believe that he is misguided in his passion to take down somebody who's done something criminal than think that he really would try and do something like that, knowing when this indictment happens, he enters the list of top 5 people who may get murdered for political reasons. Like this is not that's not a place you comfortably sleep at night once you've done. And so I think the characterization may be too quick to say he wants to be the guy, but then also there's going to be people out there who want to be the guy. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's hard to predict, hard to call, I should say.
Yeah. Anyway, there are some other calls that it looks like there's some calls lining up that have a little bit of oomph, a little bit of bite to them. And I want to get to those. Anything before we let you go, Michael?
No, sounds good. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Oh my goodness. I'm not going to. I'm not even going to say I don't like this person.
Oh boy. But
in chat, somebody has sort of indicated that Kyle Kulinski maybe is the person who stands out as Brian Tyler Cohen is a better person is better at what he does than Kyle. I'm just going to put it there. I like Kyle for specific things.
I got lots of problems with Kyle, but while Kyle's busy sucking on Joe Rogan's bong, and being a Bernie or Buster, and trash talking the rest of us who are advocating for rational positions, I'm not impressed that he's a secular dude.
His brashness was politically harmful, at minimum, is what I will say. But I like Kyle. If Kyle was like, hey, do you want to do a thing? You probably wouldn't. I don't think I would have a single problem even telling him things to his face. Like, hey, man, this sucked. You shouldn't have done that. That was some shit. And by the way, stop letting Joe Rogan tell you how to speak about trans issues. Fucking idiot. Anyway, I'd like to hear from Tyler in Indiana. Tyler, Indiana, how you doing?
Hi, how are you? I'm doing well, thanks.
I'm all right. What it says here, you don't think that Trump is going to get arrested, and I cannot imagine how you would defend that position. Trump thinks he's going to get arrested, let alone anybody else.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I do hope he gets arrested, but oftentimes when I hear about these kind of things, because I've been hearing kind of about this for years, it just nothing ever came from it. So I do want him to get arrested, but I am a little bit skeptical about it, I guess you could say.
So were he to be indicted and turn himself in for processing and a mugshot and fingerprints are taken, do you think at that point, or do you not, is there a word thing here where you're like, that doesn't really seem like being arrested to me, or are you saying you don't even think that will happen?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure if that'll even happen.
I see.
But to be fair, I didn't think anything was going to happen on January 6th. I remember my wife was really worried about the Capitol because of, I forget which country was like threatening our Capitol, but she was really worried about that. Well, it turns out we just took care of that ourselves, and domestic terrorists kind of tried to throw a coup d'etat or something, and so I was wrong there.
Sure.
So crazier things have happened.
So summary of your call is just to say I've been let down too many times and I can't bring myself to believe he's actually going to get arrested. Is that right, Tyler?
Yeah, pretty much.
Could we start over and could you pretend, could you say like, you guys are fucking idiots if you think that he's going to get arrested and make this a way better call? No, I'm just kidding. It's fine. It's fine. I'm teasing. Sure, go ahead. And then we're going to move on, Tyler.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say the other thing I thought of while I was on hold is that I view Trump more as like a cult leader, I guess. Oftentimes, I kind of consider a lot of his crazy followers to be worse than he is. I don't know how popular that opinion is.
No, man, I don't agree. I don't agree. Because I guess because I've been in a cult before. And
Same.
Yeah. And were you a Mormon, Tyler?
No, I was part of this like cyber cult online when I was like in my teen years when I was trying to learn about Christianity.
Gotcha.
But
I think that enough of his followers just truly have fallen for the scam that the level to which they are a victim versus the level to which they are a monster somewhat reduces in my mind if I'm evaluating who's worse or not. Donald Trump isn't a victim. He's just the monster. Whereas these people who are, it's kind of like with purity culture. I really enjoy, I just released an episode on purity culture where I was debunking a woman who was advocating for purity culture. But I acknowledge when I'm fighting against somebody on purity culture, especially a woman, that they are a victim before they are the monster. But that doesn't mean that that they get away with the things they did, but it's a way to approach somebody compassionately. Whereas Donald Trump is more the Joseph Smith of the presidency, of his cult, if it is indeed a cult, and an individual Mormon, even back then, who was participating and in no way in leadership and in no way actually sure that the whole thing was a scam, as the leadership of that church currently knows and would have known in the past. I find myself unable to call his followers worse. What perhaps is happening, Tyler, is you actually interact with his followers, which has a bigger impact on your personal life. I don't.
I do.
We don't. You're right. Okay. I don't, and you don't interact with Donald Trump, and that's what makes it feel worse. Because day to day, they piss you off more, and I get that. They are a worse presence in your life than he is.
Well, yes. I guess I kind of almost am in the opposite position. Like, I'm surrounded, like, both my in-laws and family members. I wouldn't necessarily say that they're Trump supporters, but they like him, I guess. So like I'm not including those people. I'm including more of the people that are like thinks that hates gay people, and it's just all these like conservative weird values that some people have, and they're like Trump or die, Trump 2024, and who genuinely want Trump to be president for like more than 2 terms or something. It's just crazy shit, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
that's more what I'm referring to. But the average kind of person who's like, I like Trump, but he's not my favorite. Yeah, I'm not really referring to those people. But,
even amongst the extremists, do I think that there are people who would be even worse than Trump if they had Trump's political position? Sure. But yeah, there's in sort of the as the existential question goes, I can't say that I agree with it, but I understand, and I'm not telling you that you're stupid for your position or anything. I just don't agree.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Tyler.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
What about you, Matt? Do you have an opinion on who's worse, Trump or his followers?
Well, I mean, it's a coin toss to me.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here thinking about it, and I'm like, well, his followers are the ones who give him the power. I guess if they're gifting that power, doesn't that make them worse?
The metaphor I had used is Joseph Smith is worse than any individual Mormon, or at least that wasn't leadership. Because actually Brigham Young is the worst thing that came out of the Mormon cult. But any individual Mormon, Joseph Smith was definitely, I feel, worse than. But as a group, Mormons giving Joseph Smith the power. Now I'm still citing Joseph Smith in that scenario. And to that end, probably still sticking to Trump being the worst one. Anyway, let's see. Hey, by the way, we are willing to take, if you're listening right now and you're seething, or you are wanting to figure out what just the right thing you can say to own all of these leftist woke cucks in the live chat, I'd love to just talk to you one-on-one. You can call us 720-619-2288. There is a link in the description. You and us can have it out. We'll hear you out. Let's hear you out. And you've gotten a good example here of the way in which we might engage and push back if you say things we think are wrong are at least consistent with the way we push back on people who think we're right. You've gotten good examples of that tonight, so it is clearly very fair. But for the moment, this is very coded. We're going to talk to Brad, who just gave the screener the information that he has a different perspective on the Trump indictment. So Brad, give us that different perspective.
Well, it's kind of a idea that I had, and I wanted to bounce it off you guys and see what you thought.
Sure.
I kind of see the leaking of this as a way for him to kind of test the waters to see how fervent his base is at the moment. What do you guys think about that?
Sorry, Brad, are you saying you think it is that's what they are doing, or you think that might be a secondary benefit?
Well, you guys alluded to the fact that he may be the one who leaked the possibility of his arrest. And I agree that that's probably something that he would do. So in light of that,
we got this from sources before him.
Okay. Sorry about that. I didn't mean.
No, I genuinely want to understand, because everybody's like, "Hey, what's the likelihood of this? Where did the story start?"
Aside from like,
it doesn't matter where the leak was.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if Trump leaked this and it's not going to happen and was never going to happen, that would be silly. Although perhaps accomplish something. But if it's going to happen, I just don't get what difference it make whether he leaked it or, somebody. I don't know who leaked it. Who is? It seems like we're looking for like political machinations of, oh, there's so much more here. It's been years that we've been waiting for this to happen.
And the first one is very disappointing.
And you know, because I follow the clickbait on like Brian Tyler Cohen and others, even before Trump tweeted anything about this, we had already heard that they had reached out to the Secret Service to talk about the possibility of arresting him. So I just don't know when you start, you or anybody else, Brad, starts talking about what their intent was. I need to know who that they is. It's like when they say, oh, they secret remedies, they don't want you to know about. I got to know who that they is.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. That's not what I was trying to say. Like, I don't think that like a nefarious they were trying to leak it or anything of that nature. Basically, my idea was that, I mean, regardless of who leaked it, right? You know, he's been going around doing his, you know, insanity tour, whatever you want to call it, and getting his base riled up, or trying to get them riled up again. So my theory on it was that the whole reason for him announcing it like he did, I guess, is to kind of test the waters and see how riled up they are, how fervent they are in the current state of things.
Okay. I get that's a potential reason for the average person to do something like this or to care about this. Do you think that Trump for a second thinks his base doesn't support him, that he needs to go and test it to see how strong is it now? I mean, I don't know. The answer could be legitimately that he could.
I don't think that I think he knows that their support is still there. I think, but I mean, we've also seen time and again how much he feeds off of that.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know. It's just kind of a thought that I had.
Yeah.
But
and if you just,
I see what you're saying as well.
If you'd just been like, hey, I think he's doing this to like stroke his own ego to show that, you know, let me show DeSantis how they're still going to stand behind me type thing. That I can buy. That sounds exactly like him.
Well, and just to see, you know, because I mean, they pretty much went off the rails on the 6th, and a lot of them have gone off the rails individually, you know, here and there across the country. So
I think I must have made it confusing, Brad, I'm realizing, from what I said. And so I just want to clarify. I think it is very strange. Something is disconnected. I am not trying to suggest, though it might have been a reasonable thing to infer, or think that I was suggesting at least. I'm not trying to suggest that it's not going to happen. It is very strange to me, and there is definitely parts of it that still maintain that are speculative. It is very strange to me that Donald Trump would say his source is the leak when it is Saturday, the next business day is Monday, and then the day after he is meant to be indicted and delivering himself, arrested, whatever phrase you want to use. When by now that would have the coordination, as Matt mentioned with the Secret Service, but the one I was thinking of prior was his legal team, would have already been in motion and moving for some time, especially because he's going to have to travel from out of state to be there to turn himself in. And so something is disconnected and missing. And maybe it is simply that it is a sexier thing to say. Maybe Donald Trump has known for a week or two that next Tuesday he's turning himself in. But now that there was a story about a leak, that is an easier thing to rile up a mob into a frenzy. Maybe that is the case. But some detail is missing between why he would cite the leak as opposed to saying, my legal team and Secret Service have been made aware of this, and I will be turning myself in, but fuck them, protest, show up, and, you know, get your freedoms.
Can you pull up his truths again?
Yeah.
I fucking makes me want to rip my tongue out and stab it, nail it to a wall every time I call them truths.
You want part 1 or 2?
Well, we'll do part 1 first, because I can't remember exactly what I'm looking for is in there. So this all caps screed. which is our nation is now a third world and dying. The American dream is dead. This is, hey, base, I'm actually talking to you. Listen up. The radical left anarchists have stolen our presidential election, spelled incorrectly, by the way. But, or maybe it's not. Sorry.
Stalin? No, that's incorrect.
Yeah,
for sure.
There's only one L in stolen. There we go. Yeah. Our presidential, and with it, the heart of our country. 2 hours there. So
he wrote it.
Yeah, this is how we know this came from the former president, is that it's Stalin, our presidential election, and with it, the heart of our country. American patriots are being arrested and held captive like animals. Now, that's the people he's talking about, are the January 6th. These are the insurrectionists are being arrested and held in captivity like animals. No, people were convicted of crimes the same way I hope that you will be convicted of crimes. While criminals and leftist thugs are allowed to roam the streets, killing and burning with no retribution. I don't know where that's happening, but okay. Millions are flooding through our open borders, many from prisons and mental institutions. Cool. Let's fear-mongering. We didn't finish the wall that I promised, and everybody's coming over, and Biden and them are doing nothing. Crime and inflation are destroying our very way of life. And then in the next tweet, now illegal leaks. There's been no demonstration that there was a leak that was illegal at all, but he can claim it. From a corrupt and highly political Manhattan District Attorney's office. Okay, cool. Is his mom ugly too? And his kids are awful, as if that matters. Which has allowed new records to be set in violent crime. Okay, so now we have an ad hominem attack on what they're doing in other cases, which is whataboutism. All of this is whataboutism. What about their record on violent crime? What about, the fact that they're corrupt and all this other stuff? Indicate that with no crime being able to be proven, a poisoning of the well, that's the whole point of you going to trial, is to prove that a crime was committed. You can assert all day that it can't be proven, but that doesn't make it so. Based on an old and fully debunked by numerous prosecutors fairy tale, this doesn't even have it, the thing I was looking for. The far and away leading Republican candidate, blah, blah, blah. There's a thing where he talks about George Soros.
No, yeah, it was up there. It's like the fifth line. Whose leader is funded by George Soros.
Whose leader is funded by George Soros. Yeah, I got so frustrated by that, I skipped past it. I was like,
it's all good.
So what he's saying here in his tweets is, this isn't, you could view this as I'm going to test my base. You can view this as, I view it as doing the same thing he's done all along. Being consistent. When he wants to respond to accusations that he's done something wrong, it is always the same. It is, look what they did. This is illegal. This isn't true. They can't prove this. It's all a fiction. And what sucks is, because of sloppiness on the left, both with regard to media and as we wait around forever for the legal authorities to jump in and do this, because of all that, to his base, it looks like he's telling the truth. They tried to get me for this, they couldn't. They tried to get me for this, they couldn't. They tried to get me for this, they couldn't. His base already likes the fact that he's a tax cheat. He campaigned on that.
Yeah.
You can't. Yeah. I'm sorry, Rachel Maddow, but you can't do we finally got his tax statements and he's a tax cheat. We already knew that. He flat out told people when he was running that he knows how to manipulate the system, which is why he's the only one that can fix it. The thing to point out is he didn't fix it. He's a flat out liar. He said, I know how to fix it because I'm the one that can break it the best. And then he doesn't fix it. That's the thing to point out. It's like strategically, the left is dumber than a sack of hammers.
Honestly, sorry, go ahead.
I was just thinking Rachel's 4-page summary. We got them tonight. Trump's taxes. We got them all. And it was 4 pages from like 1998 or something stupid like that. Maybe it was 2006. Mm-hmm. Anyway, go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, no, Matt's absolutely right as far as, him playing the same old cards that he's always played. And I completely agree with that. I was just just kind of wondering about that. And then, I mean, also, what do you guys think is the likelihood that he actually turns himself in, or that he
100%.
makes them come and get him?
100%.
100% if he is indicted, he will turn himself in.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious about that because he refused to testify anywhere so far. So
No.
That doesn't mean he's going to testify. Well, he probably won't testify.
No, I
because he's
understand
the
that.
defendant.
Yeah.
Remember, though, no, he gave a deposition just a couple months ago. He just pled the fifth I think 200 and something times. He pled the fifth over and over and over and over and over and over again. Whether he would turn himself in if he was convicted is where my number leaves 100%. But if Donald Trump tomorrow was indicted of something he obviously didn't do. So let's just say helping a poor person out of the goodness of his heart. Somehow they made that a crime. And we know he didn't do it. He would still turn himself in, because the crimes that start to accumulate, if you have an indictment, which you dodge, those crimes, then it doesn't matter whether you did or didn't do it. You now have new crimes. You are now a fugitive, and you definitely aren't going to be president. So yeah, for an indictment, 100% he'll turn himself in. Whether he would turn himself into prison on conviction isn't 100%. It might still be higher than 50, but it's not 100% for me.
Yeah. I was just thinking he might try to play it like he did with the documents that he had taken.
He would be violently arrested if he does not turn himself in. I don't mean violently as in shot or anything. I mean doors broken down, removed, humiliated beyond a degree to which he could handle if he did not turn himself in and allowed himself to be processed by the DA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's definitely an issue with, what they are arresting him for is, like you guys said, the least of everything. So, again, it's going to look like it's just another pathetic attempt by the left to get him on something that he supposedly didn't do. So.
They will raise money on his mugshot. It's not, this doesn't hurt him unless it does.
No.
This doesn't hurt
it
him,
also helps them,
but the next things might.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for every time that you could say, like with Rachel Maddow and the like, could say, oh, we finally got him, you also have the other side saying, oh, this guarantees his reelection. So,
yes, that's a stupid thing. Elon Musk said it too. This will get him reelected in a landslide. He couldn't be reelected in a landslide if every Republican who was going to vote in 2024 or will vote rather in 2024 decided to vote for him. He is outside of the range of a landslide ever again. But that's a stupid thing that Elon Musk has joined in and saying. Now, whether or not it will cause a landslide nomination, that's potentially true. But election, no.
I don't think they can get away from him at this point.
Yeah, but, well, maybe. Ron DeSantis has a shot, but I don't know if he actually has a shot if they can't convince Trump to pretend it was his idea. Yeah, it's kind of shit.
Fair.
Anything else, Brad?
Nope. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Cool.
Thanks, too.
There's a type of call we haven't gotten yet, and I'd like to. Can I quickly switch the names better? So, look, the number's right here, 720-619-2288. I would love a call which begins with, Matt, Jimmy, here's the thing you're not seeing. I'd love that call. I would love a call that says, Matt, Jimmy, I'm aware that while you aren't enthused about this, you think Donald Trump should go to prison for some things, and here's why you're wrong. Matt, Jimmy, I support Donald Trump and think he is the legitimate president, the legitimately elected president in 2020 as well. We're not getting any of those. We're getting people who mostly agree with us but think maybe there's something to explore here. And I like you people. I really do. I am entirely bored. And that's probably only something I'm going to say late at night on a Saturday. I'm only going to demean, like, tomorrow on Sunday, I'll pretend not to be. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay. You are the arbiter of when and how bored you are or anything else. To me, it's not bored. It's a little bit encouraging that we seem to be getting to a point where there's like once upon a time, there was a lot more pushback on certain things, and it would be like, oh, you know, I'm not anti-Trump, but the left is blah blah blah, and it's definitely, it feels like it's all changing.
So what are a couple of statements we can throw out there and say, I've got a couple of calls lined up still. It's not like we've run out of calls, but Donald Trump would be a disaster to have back in 2024. Donald Trump belongs in prison. There's two statements from me that I think Matt agrees with. You can tell me if you don't. Is there any other ones you want to throw out there and say, if you disagree with these statements, call in. Let's hear from you.
No.
Nothing profound to add. All right. In the meantime, Serene, why don't you tell me how to say your name correctly before we get started? Saren?
It is Seren.
Seren. Okay, great. Seren. I like that name. That's very cool. Seren,
I chose it myself.
There's an interesting thing here. Maybe, is there a question or a disagreement you're bringing, or you're just wanting to talk about the timeline of Georgia revelations?
Well, I wanted to bring more information about the different indictments that are happening and some like recent things that have occurred, and to correct some of the timeline and some of the issues a few of the other callers had brought up.
Let's start with the corrections.
Yeah, so with the tax returns, the original caller implied, I could be incorrect in this, but to me it seemed like he was implying that the tax returns had been like being investigated since like 2016 when he was running, or after he was elected and was in office in 2017. The thing is, the tax returns were blocked until late February of 2021. So the Manhattan DA didn't have access to those taxes until just under 2 years ago. And when you combine that with what the other caller was talking about, how the I'm terrible with some of the names, had put the brakes on it, that kind of explains why the timeline on this particular case has taken so long, is that they were being blackballed because the president can't be indicted, so the investigation was put on hold.
I hear you. A lot of the so the argument that they're going to say in return is the investigation itself could have gone on. Indictment would have been impossible. And so now you have an indictment 3 years after the 4-year term is over. And them saying that, you know, well, if we couldn't indict him, then we were going to prioritize him at that time, though we had plans to indict some point in the future. There is the possibility a judge could say, if you could have been investigating that whole time and none of this relied on testimony from Trump until after he was out of office anyway, then no, we are not going to grant an exception for the statute of limitations. That's going to be the argument you get back, but you can...
Well, my point is that the courts had been blocking his tax returns from being given to the DA. Like, they didn't literally have access to it, so they were blocked from doing the investigation.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a ruling that changed late February of 2021, and so it's been 2 years now since he's been out of office, because the election happens on 2020, but he's still in office until 2021.
Sure.
Our cycle's a little
few
weird
months.
there, but yeah, a few months. But I mean, like, we're talking about 2 years, 2 months. I'm just trying to be accurate there, because to say like it did take them time. It's way slower than it should. But with the other indictments that are happening, like we just saw on Friday that in the DC Circuit Court that his lawyer Evan Corcoran just lost client attorney privilege and is being forced to testify before a grand jury. So like. And then in Georgia, we don't have just one recorded phone call now. Last week, there was reporting that they have a second phone call that was recorded. So I think what we're seeing is the domino effect. Like, it's beginning to pile up, one by one. They're taking their time, I think, because they have to make sure that they get all their different people, the testimonies, we saw Trump. He did, as you mentioned, he did, several hundreds of pleading the fifth, but that was last month. So there's a slowness to it. But I think this is like the beginning of the domino effect. Like, we're going to begin to see these other investigations moving further and further along. Because the D.C. Circuit one is related to the classified documents. And then in Georgia, that's the election fraud or election tampering, the pressure on the Georgians to, change the election in his favor.
Sure. I don't know. I just am sitting here going like, I hope you're right. I hope all of those things are, because it's really embarrassing that the first one that bore any fruit is the one that looks the least likely for that fruit to end up being any good. But I hope I'm wrong on that too.
Yeah.
But if they've, again,
well, it could just be fines, because we don't know exactly what the indictment will be. So without knowing the charges, we can't even begin to assess what the actual penalty could be, because there's fines or criminal charges.
I will say I am very skeptical that this could potentially result in any prison time at all.
Oh yeah, I don't think so either. That's why I'm like saying like fines. Like, I don't think this case won't. I don't think will have any bearing on inhibiting him from running.
Sure.
He's gained in the last month. He's gained 10% in the Republican early polling for the primary. If he was running against Ron DeSantis, originally it was 40 to 30. Now it's 50 to 30 in Trump's favor. So he's gaining lead within the Republican sector, and it's like I just think we need to not jump our guns and see that we're oh, he's gonna get arrested, he's gonna go down. I don't think I don't think we wanted to jump there. I'm with you on that. We can't know the intention of the prosecutors until they tell us, or the person who leaks it until they tell us.
Yeah, I think we all agree we're waiting on a lot of information to know what's next. It doesn't really change from there's two things about this. One, again, before this indictment was coming down, there were people saying, I just hope that's not the first one that hits the fan, because this is the weakest one from what we know. So that's number one. And then number two, Donald Trump is already beginning to use language which riles up a specific portion of his base, and is not dissimilar to how he began to start using language when just before the January 6th insurrection.
To me, that part I haven't processed yet. It's terrifying. I'm a trans woman. I'm already just, the amount of shit going on in this country is in regard to that is enough. To process him saying, I can't call the wording, but he's, saying to protest and calling the country third world, and the degrading language there of the country. And that to me is alarming, because I don't know what his base is currently willing or wanting to do.
A second term unrestricted by needing to be reelected Donald Trump, even before everything else we know, even after him being scorned, is already a terrifying proposition.
That makes me just praying. I'm an atheist, and I just the language of saying praying, but the hope, or just please Canada pass the easier asylum for people.
Yeah, especially one of the categories you told us that you're a member of. I definitely think that it would be good if certain places would make it easier for trans people in America, especially in places that are so
Michigan,
hostile.
We did pass an extension to our equal rights protections to include trans people under our different categories of protected classes. So we expanded that just recently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. Well,
yeah.
I hope you're right about some of the things you said, and I hope that this all leads to a lot more. I think that, well, we've already been over it nine or 10 different ways at this point. Anything left before we let you go? Oh, you hung up before I said goodbye. I was going to give you a last word. I was going to give Seren a last word, but oh well. Thank you, Seren. It's a nice call. the number's still there. We've still got at least another call. Maybe we'll just run on to super chats and respond to any, but there's people making challenges in the chat. I don't care if it looks like somebody was accusing you of being a naturalist or something, not an atheist. If you want to call in.
It's beyond, I banned him. It's beyond stupid. Somebody's like, Alan in chat says that you don't identify as an atheist, you identify as a naturalist. And I'm like, okay, at Alan, I identify as an atheist. I generally avoid identifying as a naturalist. And then he's like, there, you just heard Matt say it. And I'm like, okay, obvious troll is obvious. We'll just move on from here.
Yeah. Avi Desane. All right. Well, we'll talk to Daniel, but look, where are the brave people? Where are you? Cause y'all get so brave on Twitter. Y'all get so brave and look, your face isn't going to be on the screen. You can pretend to be your anime profile photo that you're using on Twitter when you call in too. Where are the brave? Where are the challengers? These are the people I want to hear from. But let's talk to Daniel in California, who's got a tangential but slightly different question. Daniel in California, you're on the line.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure talking to you again, and to you, Matt, as well.
Thanks, Daniel.
Jimmy, I really wish I could get any of my parents on the line because you would love them. They would absolutely go ham. Not in a, they would blues, obviously, but my dad is part of the George Soros, global one world order, whatever that stuff, and my mom is part of the, Tucker Carlson is my best friend camp.
Did you ask him to call?
He's sleeping right now. He's in Georgia. So
no, not tonight. But have you asked him if he'd called generally? I'm just curious what he said. If find out.
He's never called.
Sure,
no.
Ask him.
He's never called, and sorry. Go ahead.
Just ask him. I mean, don't trick him. Don't hey, here's a number. Call this number, and you can tell him about the channel. You can tell him he can watch episodes, whatever. You can show him, and then ask him if he'd call in because you want to see. Sometimes it can be as simple as saying I find what these people say compelling. I'd like to see if you can poke holes in what they're
trying to get someone's parent to call in because they disagree.
Just in general, yes. somebody to call in with a challenge on one of our shows, not tonight, after being introduced to the channel, to call in and have these conversations with us.
Cool.
Most definitely. I completely agree. Well, on to the topic. Yeah. Did you want to go first or should I go?
No, go ahead.
So yeah, I was kind of looking ahead. I'm a dumb idiot kid. I have a good amount of years left of on me until I can say that I'm somewhat smart, somewhat educated. So maybe I'm not completely in the know on this, but I kind of see politics is, I'm not gonna say getting better, but I guess it's better than it was 4 years ago. So I don't really know. I can't see anyone from the Democratic Party besides Joe Biden that is really, I guess, a compelling, quote unquote, compelling candidate. I see Trump and DeSantis, and I forgot who some other lady is trying to run, but I don't really see anything
Nikki
from
Haley.
The Democratic Party. Okay, Nikki Haley. Oh wait, is that the one on the Republican Party?
I assume when you say another lady is trying to run, you're talking about Nikki Haley.
Yeah. That one. But is there anyone from the Democratic Party that has a really good chance besides Biden?
So do you want to know who we are impressed by, or do you want to know who has a shot at the nomination if Biden, for example, doesn't run, which I'm still pretty convinced he's not going to?
Okay, both questions, sure.
Yeah, because the one question of, besides Biden, if Biden decides to run, there won't be anybody challenging him.
Correct. Including
the
Bernie.
Democratic Party's stupid. They're not that stupid.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So who's got a shot if Biden decides not to run or something prevents him from running? Gavin Newsom probably would be, I think there's a 70+% chance that he would actually be the nominee if Biden didn't run. he's nowhere near. I'm not ideological. I'm not endorsing him. I think that's just the fact of he's the governor of California. If you've not heard of him, Daniel.
I'm in California.
Oh, dope.
Of course.
What do you think of Newsom?
Yeah. So, I don't know. I think he's too, I don't know. This is going to sound, he's too much of a cocksucker.
Yes, that a homophobic slur to describe would sound not great. So I'll give you a chance to retract it and rephrase.
I don't mean to. Okay, he. This is gonna sound like he.
First of all, whether or not it's a homophobic slur, I'm campaigning to make sure that cocksucker never gets used as a pejorative again, because I think it's a good thing.
Okay.
I've liked every cocksucker I've ever met.
Me too.
Yeah, exactly. See, thank you. Matt's got it. I appreciate it, but I don't know.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. He kind of seems like kind of weak, like in terms of personality. He doesn't seem very motivational, in my opinion. That's kind of where I'm going with that. But I don't think he expressed interest in running though, because he did. He was reelected, and he said that if he was reelected, they wouldn't run. But once again, he could be lying.
Are you new to politics?
That's.
No, I'm not.
Governors don't announce that they're going to run until after they've done all the work necessary to make sure that it's the right, smart decision.
Yeah.
If you think for a second that Gavin Newsom hasn't considered running for president at some point in the past or future, I don't even know. How do you function in the world?
No. I know that he's considered running 100%. I'm not denying that, but I don't think he'll run this time, considering Biden's going to run.
Correct. He will not run against Biden. We've already said that.
Ago.
Yeah, but if Biden doesn't run, he will. Is what I'm telling you.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure Biden is going to run again. But that's.
I have no such. I have no such. Not only do I'm not going to say Biden won't run. I think it is less likely that he will run than he will run. My phrasing is terrible. My brain is melted already. I don't think he's going to run. I think it is above 50%, and I think there's a decent chance he's already decided that. I also think that he has spoken to people like Gavin Newsom and others who were a few months ago projecting that they wanted to be in people's brains when we were talking about the next election against Ron DeSantis, essentially, that they want people to be thinking of them as adversarial to specifically Ron DeSantis and Trump to a lesser degree. And that the White House basically said, hey, you remember how we all unified to get behind Biden? If Biden doesn't run, he can't announce he's not running amongst people projecting that they're going to challenge him. Everybody fall in line now. And if he doesn't run, he's going to endorse one of you. That's what I think has happened. And I don't think he's planning to run. But I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm wrong.
I agree. Wholeheartedly. And
By the way, I think Newsom is who he would endorse.
Yeah, most likely. He is the biggest in scope of all the Democratic candidates that could run outside of Biden if he runs, which is a big if. Yeah, it's probably Newsom.
Nina Turner will probably also run as far as either in 2024 or the following. And there's a couple other people out there who might run as well. I imagine you would see Stacey Abrams. Excuse me. You'd probably also see Amy Klobuchar. If Biden wasn't running, Pete Buttigieg will definitely run for president again one day, whether it be 24 or later. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like, if only my parents were home, they knew about the show. My mom is the most anti Gavin Newsom person because she doesn't want to be she's like, oh, BLM is annoying. I don't understand trans issues, therefore I don't like trans, whatever, LGBT stuff. It's like that whole pile. There's a thing in Russian there's like this Russian joke called govnusen. It's like govno is like shit. So it's kind of putting that together, and that's a word that she uses to describe him, which is like, interesting. I'd love for her to come on the show once again. But yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate it. I'm sure you guys have more important things to do, like super chats and all of that. So yeah.
Sure. I also don't know why I forgot that Elizabeth Warren exists, but of course Elizabeth Warren will probably run again. Bernie won't ever run again, I don't think. Maybe not even if Biden doesn't.
Damn.
One more time?
Yeah, I can't believe you forgot Elizabeth Warren exists.
I know. I forgot her. And then Ro Khanna from California also probably. By the way, you should know, Daniel, no one in America cares what people who are politically affiliated with your mom for the 2024 election. This is about, again, I'm phrasing this poorly. Your mother not liking Gavin Newsom is not indicative of anything that will prevent Newsom from running, because he will. California is a guaranteed to go for Newsom. It won't be about whether or not Republicans and people like her at large like Newsom. It'll be how does he play in swing states. They genuinely, your mom will be cared about less than ever. Maybe that's a valid reason for her to hope that he doesn't get the nomination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, she's going to single-handedly stop Gavin Newsom from running. It's easiest fight. I don't know.
She will be pandered to the least of everybody. But yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you all so much.
Thanks,
Have
Daniel.
a good one.
Sure.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Cool. Okay. We've got, and this may end up being the last call. Basically, I'm not going to take any calls beyond this unless somebody has a challenge for us. But the last call looks like it will be a challenge. Then we're going to do super chats. We'll read anything $5 or more. Get your super chats in. But only challenge calls from here forward. Let me make sure that our screener. Thank you, by the way, Ryan and Alex tonight for being our screeners. At Alex, only challenge calls here forward. Because I don't know. I'm not going to spend it all night. But we actually have a person who, a theist even, from Georgia. We have Ian from Georgia. You are on the line. Okay, Ian, before we get started, are we on speakerphone? Why am I hearing myself? Sure, let's take it off.
Okay, better?
I imagine so. Yes, much better. Okay, Ian, go ahead.
So, I just think that lots of people have talents in them. And I think that if they put like a legal teacher up in the White House to teach the president how to like fucking use his own skill to do right with the country, then I think he could actually be a very valuable asset, in my opinion.
Hey, would he be more valuable than the person who's teaching him?
Well, I guess. I don't know.
You don't know. So you think that we should hire someone to teach Trump to be a better president, and then he'll be a better president. But why should we hire someone to teach someone how to do the job instead of hiring someone who can do the job without being taught?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's why I'm paid to sit in here on Cus I Wanna and ask questions. It's the only question. I mean, I appreciate the fact that you called in, and I'm going to give you mad kudos for doing that, because you basically called in to say, oh, here's why I believe Trump should continue to be president. Well, first of all, continue to be president isn't a thing. He was president. He's not president now, unless you think the election was like illegal.
Well, no. I think if he were to win next time in the next.
Yeah. And so let's assume for a second that Trump and Biden were both running in 2024. Would you vote for Trump?
Actually, well, yeah, I probably would, but it's very I don't know. I want to see what the other people might do. So It would be on the table, but
Assume
it wouldn't
it's
be
Trump
something
Biden.
absolute.
Just assume it's Trump Biden.
That's what I said. That's what I said. Assume it's Trump Biden.
Okay.
Who would you vote for between
so
Trump and
only
Biden?
them. I guess I would go for Trump.
Why?
Well, I think what I saw in around when where I'm at in Georgia, it seemed like things were going better, and people had more money and all that.
When?
People
During
had
Trump?
more money.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's fine. What data do you have for that?
Well, everyone in my family, and then just everyone I came across, they just talked about how they had more money in their pockets.
Okay. So I get it. So you look around at the people around you, and they feel like they got more money in their pocket than they did. But, we lost 2.8 million jobs. Unemployment rate was up to 6.3%. While weekly earnings were up, economic growth was down. Home prices skyrocketed, and home ownership did increase, but that was at the beginning of it. Corporate profits were up 8.5%, and they cut food stamp recipients.
But they cut food stamps?
Yeah, Trump did.
Oh, that's bullshit. I didn't know that.
Well, they didn't eliminate them, but food stamp recipients were down by 1.7%, which isn't necessarily an elimination of that. But we lost 154,000 manufacturing jobs. I mean, maybe where you are, people generally did better, but, paychecks did grow faster than inflation. So that's at least a good thing, which might be why people felt like they had more money in their pocket. But if that was increased because the international trade deficit, which he promised to reduce, increased. Trade deficit for goods and services in 2020 was the highest since 2008 and increased 40.5% from 2016. In 4 years he was there, in 40.8% or 40.5%. The number of people lacking health insurance increased by 3 million with his attempts to undo Obamacare. Or the federal debt held by the public, the portion of the debt that you and I pay, went from $14.4 trillion to $21.6 trillion. That is a full 50% increase in the amount of debt that you and I now have. Do you think the people around you who felt like they had more money in their pockets would still feel like they had more money in their pockets if they knew that they owed all of that and more for the debt? By the way, illegal immigration increased under Trump. But hey, good news, handgun production rose 12.5%.
Woo!
Also, the murder rate rose to the highest level since 1997.
So, Ian, what do you...
How that happened?
Yeah, see, this is what happens when you don't just go with your gut and how people around you feel while they're getting lied to by Fox News, and you actually go look up the actual data. This is all, if you do a search for Trump's numbers at the end of his 4 years, this is what you find. That's what I don't have all this memorized. I pulled it up.
Yeah, I'm just not really big with computer that much, so I just don't really get on, look at stuff a lot. But I sometimes get on YouTube or something. But yeah, that's very informative. I did not know all that.
Ian, how do you usually decide who to vote for president?
Wait, say that again?
How do you usually make the decision who you should vote for president at the final election, not even worrying about the the primaries? When it comes to the general election, how do you usually decide?
The one who can generally produce the most money, and then on top of that, the one who hopefully, because not many of them seem to have been great with understanding the strategics of the military. At least I don't think they have been.
And where is it that you get the information? So who tells you who is better at producing money, and who tells you who is better at managing the military? Where do you get that information from?
I look at, well, when it comes to the managing the military, I look at that just like what currently will be going on with the military. So like right now with Joe Biden, I think he's doing like a good job with his military. I think they're doing the right thing, sending Ukraine supplies and all that. But when it comes to like the money, well, you know, I don't really know like the profits that America makes, but I do know right now we are kind of in a bad situation with money. So,
and you believe that's Biden's fault, or you think that is just the situation we're in?
I think it could be both.
So, Ian, the reason why I was bringing this up to you is earlier you were mentioning, well, the friends and the people around me here in Georgia all seem to think they had more money then. And it sounds like, because you still haven't really told me where the source of your information is. You've said what type of information you're looking for. And I'm sort of interested to know, if you're not on the internet, where it is you're getting this information. Because if it is the fact that you're just having conversations with people around you, and those people around you are people you've met through communities you are a part of that have a lot of ideological things in common, I just wonder how... It seems bizarre to me that you weren't aware of not all of them, but any of the things that Matt shared, unless you are living in a way where that kind of information, negative information about Donald Trump and the job he did, didn't make it to you. So I'm just curious, like, go on.
Okay, so, well, yeah, so I do get my information around people around me, and when it comes to like the internet, I only use it for music, you know, okay. And I you know, it's just that's YouTube and a little bit of Facebook.
Are you watching the news?
But no.
So it's just people around you and the communities around you, right?
Yes.
So would you agree then that whatever information that you are consuming is going to reflect the bias of that community, correct?
Yes, I do agree with that.
So what do you do to avoid that corrupting the things that the information you're receiving? Are you doing anything to fight against that?
I do look for biases, but the thing is I don't know the statistics on the things. I just haven't really given it a look, and I guess I need to do my homework, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I might suggest expanding out your information, the places that you do that homework. Maybe it shouldn't be just stuck to some isolated communities of people who are already prone to one thing or another. I'm not saying that you can't include them in your information. Surely you should. But anytime you hear a claim, you should seek to challenge it and not believe in something until you have good reason to believe it.
I definitely agree with that statement.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything ideologically or a value you can say that you liked about Donald Trump that you don't like about Biden? Is there, do you have any evaluation besides who produces more money, which, by the way, there's already some issues there, but is there anything ideologically that matters? Does it matter to you what, like, for example, queer people are going through in this country and what Trump's rhetoric has done for people like them?
What's going on in the queer community?
Okay, yeah, Ian, definitely go and do a lot of that homework. Just to get beginning on the. I mean, if you want to just start with trans people and the military ban on trans people, as well as now the hundreds of bills that trans people are facing because the Republicans are basically trying to legislate them out of existence, the now renewed effort to end gay marriage, to try and find a Supreme Court challenge that will overturn the Supreme Court ruling and quote unquote send it back to the states. So state by state, existing marriages can be annulled and future marriages can't be sought. Yeah, that's the Republicans.
Do you realize that the Supreme Court's been taken over and that they've overturned Roe v. Wade, eliminating a woman's right to choose, so that if somebody finds themselves pregnant...
What's Roe v. Wade?
Oh, all right. Dang it,
Never
Ian.
mind.
Ian.
You're either a troll who played us along
to
sound like one of the most uninformed people on the planet.
Sir.
It doesn't matter what you say now. You're either a troll or you're trying to look like the most uninformed person on the planet.
No,
Roe
I
v.
just
Wade.
don't know what that is. I'm autistic.
Roe v. Wade,
way.
the Supreme Court decision that's been fucking around since the 70s that allowed abortion. It was the biggest fucking story of the last fucking year that the Supreme Court overturned a woman's right to choose. How can you not know this? You are so grossly uninformed. You should stop voting.
Yeah, maybe don't vote, Ian. If that's true, maybe don't vote. And by the way, don't hide behind "I'm autistic" as an explanation of why you don't know basic information. You're talking to an autistic man, sir. And I knew all about Roe v. Wade. That's not a reason to not know the biggest thing that happened
I get
politically.
if you don't care about politics, that's your prerogative. But don't call in to a fucking show that's talking about it when you don't know anything and your criteria is, I go for the person who can bring the most money. You don't know who can bring the most money until they do the job. But also, first of all, it just isn't just about money. It's the people who care more about money than they do about people who are part of the fucking problem. The reason that women don't have a right to choose anymore. The notion, okay, maybe you didn't know a Supreme Court case, but you called into a show about politics to explain why you believe Trump should be president. And your reason was, we can hire someone to teach him. Can we hire somebody to teach everybody who doesn't know shit? Why don't we leave this to the people who actually give enough of a shit to look up the information and know what's going on in the country? I get it. Everybody has a right to vote. I'll support that right to vote as a thing, but it doesn't mean as a fundamental right. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be involved. You seem to be sailing through life completely oblivious to everything, and yet you somehow manage to form opinions on who should be president. How do you do that?
I'm not buying it as not an act. Even if you live in rural Georgia, you heard about Roe v. Wade because it was the single biggest thing to both parties last year.
I honestly haven't, but okay.
Ian.
I mean...
Who's Marjorie Taylor Greene?
I swear to God, wait.
Well, we don't believe in God.
Who is Marjorie Taylor Greene?
About God.
You just said you swore. You just said you swore to God. But Matt's asking you who Marjorie Taylor Greene is.
I don't know who that is either. I'm sorry, I just don't. I mean, I don't know what to say.
I'm very confused, Ian. That's one of your
you
representatives.
live in Georgia, right?
Yes, I live in Georgia, Oakwood, Georgia.
Yeah. So Marjorie Taylor Greene is a representative for Georgia's 14th district. She is probably one of the most famous Republicans on the planet right now, and is absolutely bizarre and irrational. She's promoted anti-Semitism, white supremacy. She's been in the QAnon stuff, was an advocate for Pizzagate. She's advocated for a national divorce because she's a divorcee and has recently learned the effects of that. She's the one who's here supporting Trump and the MAGA insurrectionists in Congress. And she's a representative from your state. I get it. You don't use the internet for anything but music, but do you ever watch the news or open a newspaper?
Not really.
Do you vote in any other
criteria?
I haven't voted, by the way. I've never voted, so.
Why the fuck are you calling to talk about politics and why you think, if you've never voted and you've never given enough of a fuck to look up any of the information about this, why should anybody care what you think about whether or not Trump should be president?
I'm sorry. I just thought I'd
You're not
call
sorry. You're not sorry. Why would you call in to talk about something that you clearly don't give a shit about?
Maybe I just didn't think it through. I'm sorry.
Ian, the thing is I remember other calls from you, and I'm so confused because you somewhat sound sincere, but I know what you've called about before too, and you didn't present yourself as a generally uninformed person in those times. Generally uninformed people, the last time you called was with the inevitable God argument. You got that off of the internet for sure. I don't get it, Ian. Like, maybe I need to go back and watch them. Well, on the off chance there's any sincerity, I don't want to badger you any further, but holy crap, man. If you don't know who if you're going to consider voting, you've got a lot of homework
politics. To do. That's the thing. I look up stuff about music and science, and I don't really look up anything else other than maybe South Park. I don't know. That's sometimes comedy stuff.
All right, man. Ian, before you vote, please do a lot of homework, all right?
Don't vote.
All right.
Yeah, don't vote until you've done it. Thank you, Ian.
I will definitely do my homework, and thank you for taking my call.
Sure. Good one. Have a good one.
Yep.
Boy, that just boggles the mind. By the way, there was somebody in chat who was like, autism is a spectrum, Jimmy. Are you under the impression that one in any way rebuts what I said? Don't use autism as a shield for this means I don't know basic facts. Or two, I forgot two. Two, did you think I didn't know that? The fuck was that as a autism is a spectrum when that was after I told him Jimmy with the name Jimmy on it. What was the purpose of sharing that? I'm very aware of, I would say more than the average person. I know the qualities of my condition more than the average person. I'm very sad that no one who was brave in the chat decided to come on by. I'm very sad that there were people on multiple occasions tonight. I saw at least 3 who decided to come from another program, just leave a chat about that program and then go away immediately because they're trying to, I don't know. Hopefully that was just out of their own volition. But when you start to see multiple people do it, you do wonder whether or not there's a group of people deciding. There's one call that's queuing up to screen. If it's not a challenge call, we're just going to move on to super chats because I'm not really interested in any non-challenge calls. But boy, just bizarre. The idea of not having ever heard of Roe v. Wade, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's from your state. I was going to start asking questions about, did you vote for John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, or did you vote against their?
They didn't vote.
Yeah, I know. And I'm sitting here going, I don't have to look those names up. I know the name of your senators.
There's stuff I'll have you fill me in on after we're done. But because I didn't understand part of that when you were, but it doesn't matter. The very note, I mean, I get it. We did a Cus I Wanna. This isn't always a political show or anything else, but we're specifically calling in for people who disagree. If you're the type of person who's sitting at home and whether or not you disagree could just as easily be decided by a coin toss as the actual information that you have, don't call.
Yeah.
If you, I get it. I'm not sitting here saying, well, maybe I am disparaging people for not having a little bit of information or whatever else. But if you're the type of person who doesn't care, who doesn't vote, who doesn't know what's going on, that's your prerogative. You get to do that. It's the freedom of being in America. You get to be hopelessly uninformed. And wow, I think my computer just locked up, or part of it did.
I hear and see you.
That's fine. I'll just keep going. you get to be uninformed, you get to be, you don't have to be clued in, but that doesn't mean that when you call into a show that's intentionally discussing politics, that you're deserving of some kind of baseline respect after you admit that you don't give a shit about any of this. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I just didn't think about it. Okay, you called into a politics discussion. If there was a furry show, sorry, I'm not trying to piss any of my furry friends off, but if there was a furry show with a furry discussion going on, there's not a fucking chance in hell that I would call in to tell them my opinion about furry stuff, and then when they ask me, admit, I don't know, I've never looked into any of this. I don't know anything about it at all. I don't know. I don't know anything about what's a fursona. You know, I don't know any of that. But here's what I think should happen. I think that Joe Rogan could be a good furry if we hired somebody to teach him how to be a good furry. And I'll know. I've never seen a furry or met a furry or talked to a furry. I don't know it. It's so strange.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't want to beat up on people just because they're odd. But there's a level of odd where you called in, put yourself on hold to defend a position that you absolutely don't hold.
Yeah.
Like your opinion that, oh, I think Trump would be a fine president. Like that was you just sitting there going, how could I possibly defend Trump? Well, maybe we could hire somebody to tutor him. That's it.
Yeah. I can fix him. He's like the I can fix him meme. I don't know. It's yeah. Yeah. All right. We're going to move on to super chats. It looks like none of the calls that were no, this is not us taking the time to announce that there will be a furry Q&A show on the line. I'm sorry. But besides that, we're going to move on to super chats. Any super chat, $5 or more, we'll respond to. I'm going to leave the lines open while we do super chats. All right. If somebody with a challenge wants to call in, we'll take it. This is the first time I think I've ever done this. So let me make sure Alex knows this. I'm leaving lines open. I'm leaving them open. See if you can get me a debate. And if nothing worthy comes in between now and the end of super chats, we'll just go for the night. But I got to tell you, I was looking forward. Usually it is on this. In fact, I was looking through some old clips, and there's clips in the past of the night of the election. You and I get a call from, I want to say the name was Steve. And basically they're like, how are the Democrats going to, tonight after you get stomped, since it looks like Donald Trump is going to win, what are the Democrats going to do to try and make themselves appealing again? Which are they going to drop all of this stuff about this and that? And are you going to finally like actually try to appeal to the common man? And then he ends up calling back when I think it's you and Andrew on after Biden wins. And is like, so now what are the Democrats going to do that now that they've won to heal the divide? Are they going to change their ideology? Are they going to drop all that? Basically, he has the same agenda. He wants the Democrats to not do what Democrats do. And to not have their policies. And so he was trying to use both sides of, well, since you lost, will you finally drop those things? To then, well, since you won, now will you drop those things? Just wild. Anyway, 720-619-2288. There's a link in the description as well if you want to call in. We will. I'm leaving the lines open till the end of the show to see if we can get a decent call in. But we'll start here with $4.99 from, I think that's actually pronounced Hakuseke, not Chankuseke, as I might have been tempted to say. Hakuseke, I believe, says, hey, Matt, Dinesh D'Souza, who you smashed in debate, went to jail for campaign finance fraud.
Yes. And then I sat on the stage after he got pardoned by President Trump.
I guess I must have known he was pardoned, and yet I'm receiving that like it's new information. Jason Jones, $5, says, no, dude, none of that makes sense. This came in, I actually saw it when it came in. This came in during that first call. Now, whether or not this is directed toward the caller or myself. I don't know, but I assume it was the caller since they paid money to share it, but I could be wrong. Or Matt. $10 from Lael. Lol. This super chat is to remind Jimmy that this super chat is to support Paul's need for a coffee table. I am only mildly aware of what this new inside joke is. I think I was in your house the night that it became a thing, but I don't actually know that I know what this means.
Well, yeah. So Paul won't allow coffee tables in his house because they just become a place to collect clutter.
Right, like a table.
And Shannon wanted a coffee table because evidently there are coffee cups that get set down on the floor that end up getting kicked over. And so that became a battle between them, and people started donating as if the donations might ultimately allow them to settle this dispute and get a coffee table. I don't think that's going to happen.
Look, I would be willing if they want to come on and do an episode. It would have to be on a Friday or Saturday night. It'd have to be a Cus I Wanna. If they want to do in the same sort of style as Transatlantic does, a scoreboard super chat competition after taking calls about coffee tables, where the half of the super chats will go toward the actual either purchasing or hiring of a woodworker to make them a coffee table. I'm down to do that. And the winner will be whoever gets the higher score, team coffee table versus team floor. I'm open to that idea. I'll send it their way if they want to pull that off. I'd also love to be hired to make their coffee table. Rebus Wind, just so you know, for whatever reason, the super or the super messages through memberships, I can't put them in my system. But Rebus Wind does say, came here for the Trump arresting, stayed for Matt Furry talk. What a great 4-month anniversary.
Actually, it says 4-mouth anniversary, and I found that especially funny.
That is funnier. Thank you for being a member for 4 months, though,
Thanks,
and for 4 mouths.
Yeah.
Sheridan Bernasconi says, this is Trump's way to stay in the news and relevant to his followers. People need to watch him closely, but not talk about him too much. I don't think I agree. What do you think?
I really think that, so what you've seen is Fox News is now ignoring him and pulling away from him. Fox News is basically admitting on the stand, yes, we are liars for profit. Yes, we said things that we knew to not be true, but we're talking heads on TV. Nobody should be believing us anyway. And they've used this defense a number of different times because the private messages from Tucker Carlson and others is that they're tired of Trump. They can't stand Trump. They can't wait for Trump to be gone. And so now that this Dominion lawsuit, and now there's another lawsuit from another voting company that's even bigger than the Dominion one. But now that there's these lawsuits and there's the discovery from the lawsuits gets used, of course this is the time to pile on. But I don't know that it's right to not talk about him as much, because it's one of the things is that, yes, that would annoy the shit out of him. Like if people stop talking about him, I'm sure he's pissed off at Fox News. And if in general people just stop talking about him, I'm convinced that would annoy him. I'm not convinced it would do the country any good, because right now there are a bunch of people who are, as we've seen, grossly uninformed or grossly misinformed. And if Fox News is finally going to be anti-Trump, that might almost be the penance that is required to get the Fox News viewers to stop being pro-Trump. That's as close as I can come to that. Do I wish we could all stop talking about him forever? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I just don't. So the implication of the thing that I'm saying I disagree with, I don't think Trump's doing anything right now that isn't predictable or isn't extra like, oh, I better go and tweet about truth about the indictment. Otherwise people are going to forget about me. I don't think it's for the cameras, if you will. I don't know. It's in a way everything he does is, but in a way, I don't think this is for the camera so much. All right, we've got somebody lining up. We'll go ahead and bring them on. We've got Andrew in Florida. Andrew in Florida, you're on the line. And you said it's hypocritical to assume Trump will be arrested and not Hillary Hunter Biden. First of all, is that a correct summary?
Just about.
Okay, Andrew, fundamentally, even if Hillary and Hunter, even if I believe they should be arrested, which I don't, it is not hypocritical to believe Trump will be arrested based on the news and the leaks from Trump himself included, saying he is going to be arrested this coming Tuesday. Will be versus deserves to be are different issues. And you presented will be to our screener and just said that was about a correct summary. Do you want to make any amendments?
Yeah, that he should be. That you know for sure he committed a felony, but you're not approaching it. You don't approach Hunter Biden's case or Hillary's case in the same way. I think that's a double standard.
How do I approach Hunter Biden's case?
He did say it. He did say it. But you
no,
never
Andrew, answer my question.
Biden.
How do I approach Hunter Biden's case?
You didn't do a show about it. You're not upset about it. You don't care.
How do you know I'm not upset about it?
I didn't see a show about Hunter Biden.
You didn't see a show? Do I do shows about only things I am upset about?
You did a show about Trump, but
yeah, I did do a show about Trump. So one of the biggest
Hunter Biden, the son of the current president.
Yeah, and so what? He's not the current president.
Right, you're doing a show about the former president, but there's
yes, I'm doing a show about the former president because the former president announced that he would be being indicted. Has Hunter Biden announced that he's going to be indicted? No. So stop pretending that you got any. No, sir. He hasn't announced that he's going to be indicted. So stop pretending that people are being hypocrites when they're not.
And Andrew, how much of the episode have you watched? This episode?
About 30 minutes.
Yeah. At the very beginning, I specifically laid out that this is more of a we should do it, and that the main reason we should do it is that Donald Trump has begun talking in the way he did before January 6th and used statements to summon a group of people to protest his indictment. To tell you the truth, if all I heard was, which by the way, we did hear that, as Matt mentioned earlier in the week, that an indictment may be coming. You know what we didn't do? Episodes just because someone said an indictment might be coming. So for you to both call and get wrong why we did an episode, tell me how I feel about certain things. And by the way, they are different issues. I may believe different things, feel different ways about them. I just know fundamentally that you don't know how I feel about them. You've just made brash assumptions. Here's something that's going to blow your mind, Andrew. I don't like Joe Biden and don't care for him as president. I would pick him over Trump, but Joe Biden is not a president I'm excited about. Bet you wouldn't have called that when you called on the show. You're calling in it, simping for Biden. Andrew, you've betrayed yourself as a non-thinker. Let's just start.
And if you would have listened to the beginning of the show instead of making an uninformed assumption and deciding to call us hypocrites, you would have heard us talk about the fact that this is weak sauce. So maybe you just want to retract all of it and clue yourself in before you start making accusations next time, because you've been wrong at every single turn, and you seem really upset about it. When I would think that what's actually was, first of all, I don't have to dig in on what you think about Hunter Biden or Hillary Clinton. One of them's been exonerated, and when the next one, if it turns out gets indicted for what he did, and he did it, then good. Stop assuming you know what's in our mind and getting it wrong. I'm the one that can read minds on stage, and I'm faking it. You are terrible at trying to do it.
Actions speak louder than words. There was no show about
the
other
I'm done with you now. I'm done with you now. You whataboutism, dishonest piece of shit.
Why didn't you do an episode about blah, blah, blah?
the actions here are that we reported on an actual news event, something that we've also been covering for ages. The fact is, after we identified that your assumptions were flawed, you try to come back with this shit. Why should we care what you say if you're going to be this dishonest?
Hey, Andrew.
Do you know what either of us have said about Hunter Biden in the past? I'll bet you don't, because you don't know what either of us said about Trump getting arrested from the beginning of this fucking show.
Yeah.
Come at me, bro.
That is true. That is true. I didn't watch the beginning. I'm judging it based on you guys doing a show about this, but not about the other incidents.
Okay, Andrew.
Did we do a show about any of the rest of it? Did we do a show about any of the rest of it?
No.
We didn't?
The rest of what? The rest of what?
I'm just saying, you're saying we did a show on this, but we didn't do a show on other things. What other thing
right.
What other thing compares directly to this that we didn't do a show on, and how do you know that we didn't?
The son of the current president
as the son of the current president, as the son of the current president announced publicly that he's going to be arrested.
No, not the exact same action.
Then it's not the same scenario, jackass.
Yeah. What was the date of the announcement of the indictment of Hillary Clinton, Andrew?
I did. I asked you to say what was directly comparable to this.
Yeah.
And that's the example that you came up with. I'm sorry that you can't listen to instructions any more than you can investigate what we think or what we talked about.
By the way, Andrew, you could have asked. You could have asked how I felt about the things we're finding out about Hunter Biden.
He doesn't care.
I, for example, think it is absolute bullshit that Joe Biden participated in writing a crime bill that ended the lives and families of many people for drug addiction, and that his son was protected for that same drug addiction, that the system didn't come for his son. I'm not saying now it should come for him. I'm saying we need to reform that system. But it's kind of like when you hear people who had abortions talk about the evil abortion. By the way, Andrew, we do cover a lot of issues on this. For example, we covered Roe v. Wade and abortion. How come you, either as a pro-life or a pro-choice person, doesn't matter which side you come down on, didn't care enough to call that day about that issue?
You're assuming motives on my part.
Andrew! Oh my God! You did not just say that.
Congratulations, Andrew.
God.
You are the most obvious, disgraceful, dishonest caller we've had in a long time. Because instead of answering the questions that are asked, once you've been busted as showing that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, and that you're the one who is in fact being hypocritical, you're now going on about you're assuming motivations.
That's the point, you dipshit. That was the point. You're not doing what I think you should do if you're actually passionate about this issue. And then I just turned a comparable to you, and suddenly you saw why whataboutisms are bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah. When it applied to you. Try again another day, Andrew. I am glad you called because this was the favorite part of the night. Do you have any other points you want to make before you go?
Yeah. You guys think it will happen for sure, the felony, and he will be in jail?
No, I don't. Was that a question or a statement?
No, I'm asking. It was a question.
Okay. Okay. Good.
It sounded pretty fucking accusatory and largely irrelevant, and it sounds like you should have listened to this fucking show from the start, because we already addressed that too.
Yeah. Do you remember, Andrew, when Donald Trump said he could stand, I don't remember which street it was, but on one of the avenues, shoot somebody and he wouldn't lose any votes? I agree.
Yeah, he did say that.
I agree. He wouldn't lose any votes and he might not go to jail for shooting somebody. It's not a good thing, but if you wanted to know my position, there you go.
All right. Yeah, if Hillary didn't get arrested, I don't think he will either. So I thought you guys would.
That's a very funny, silly standard.
Right. I just don't like double standards, and I assumed you guys were doing double standards.
Stop being a living double standard.
Literally, yeah.
Don't expect us to do something that you don't do. You didn't even bother to investigate what our positions were, what anybody had said or anything else before you made an accusation, you fucking hypocrite.
Hey,
I didn't
Andrew.
call you. I didn't call you to accuse you of being a hypocrite. You called in and demonstrated it while accusing us.
Hey, Andrew, why didn't Donald Trump's Department of Defense indict Hillary Clinton?
Donald Trump's Department of Defense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why didn't they?
Yeah.
Because it's
Sorry,
really hard
Justice
to prove
Department.
intent.
You're right. That was the weird Department of Defense or Justice Department. And why didn't the Justice Department indict Hillary Clinton?
It's really hard to prove intent.
Oh, weird. Hey, how come the Republican committee's doing the investigating in the years that Obama was president and the years that Trump was president, never referred never recommended indictment to the Department of Justice?
That I do not know.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet you don't. Maybe you should go back and watch all the hearings.
Well, I knew about the intent part. I remember that.
No,
she deleted those emails. She did things that were illegal, and a bunch of people got arrested for that. She did not get arrested. So it was a double standard. But
the people who deleted the emails did. Whether or not she should have, I'm willing. There is the potential that she should have gotten in trouble for some things. But I will tell you, the reasons why the very polarized, the rather partisan committees that were investigating didn't recommend them is because they knew they would be laughed out of court. So just because Hillary was accused of something and not arrested, and by the way, I don't think that she is fully innocent. I don't know what I think the consequences are, but I think she's a corrupt politician generally. I don't expect Matt to agree with me, but that's how I feel. Whether or not there should be consequences for all of that, and whether or not I should do a call-in show on that when I'm willing to do one on the fact that Donald Trump has announced his impending indictment, which has never happened in American history, and has called for people to protest his indictment. These are not equal, and every accusation does not deserve the same outcome. And you should really find out what people believe before you call in and start sentences with you instead of do.
Okay. I have an argument for why it won't happen for Trump at all.
I don't give a shit about any more arguments from you, Andrew, but I'm not the only one on the show. No, Jimmy might. So I'll play a game of chess because I don't want to sit here and listen to anything more from someone who is a hypocrite accusing me of being a hypocrite incorrectly. But Andrew, I recognize that you might have something valuable to say, and Jimmy might want to do it.
I don't. And here's why I don't, Andrew. I don't want to hear an argument for why he won't go to jail when I don't think he's going to go to jail. So all you're going to give me is we can then argue about which one of our reasons he won't go to jail will be right, especially if we're talking about this specific indictment. But that just sounds like an utter waste of time when we've already demonstrated an issue with how informed you feel you need to be before you make an assertion. So I don't, what is the value in that conversation, Andrew?
No, I guess the way you put it. Never mind then.
Tight. Thanks, Andrew. I'm not saying don't call back in the future. I'm saying do a little more research and let's do this a little more good faith in the future.
Maybe start with an apology.
And they told me I was a coward for not calling in.
Well, maybe start with an apology.
Next time. Yeah.
Yeah.
See you, Andrew.
All right.
Bye. It's weird how I was simultaneously so annoyed and yet I'm so happy a call that it felt worth the show happened. I'm not saying if you called in before that your calls had no value. There was some value. But this was the call I feel like I was waiting for. And I wish I had so badly. I'm so sorry that I failed to have the shortcut ready of me on air screaming, "That's the fucking point," like we were using as a meme in a past episode. As soon as he said, in my whataboutism charge, "You're assuming motive," that would have been the time to hit the button and have bald me with just a goatee screaming, "That's the fucking point." Oh, it would have been hilarious. Hilarious. All right, back to super chats. I'm still leaving lines open for potential, but I don't anticipate, nor do I feel unfulfilled anymore. But we already did this one from Sheridan Bernasconi, the one that I felt I disagreed with a little bit. Sheridan's a long time. Sheridan's listened a long time, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's nuances that if we disagree less than I think we disagree. So it wasn't meant to be a like, you're wrong. But anyway, Daniel Romero Soul says, we can't save the Trumpers. Let's get the Gen Z to vote in the masses and vote them out. Yeah, let's get Gen Z to vote. Sure. Good. Do that. And I'm good. They vote more than past generations at their age voted. Though I like when I've argued with some Gen Z people and they've gone, well, we voted and you didn't. I voted as soon as I could vote. The moment I voted, I have voted in every election I could legally vote in. So it don't apply to me as an individual. But yes, Gen Z voted this last election in higher amounts than other generations before them voted at that same age. They still do dramatically undervote, as does basically every generation. And millennials need to vote more. And probably just stop there. Everybody above them can keep voting less. That'd be fine. If they just didn't want to vote. Because their voting records right now, not great. But the millennials are the first generation to become more progressive with age, which is in a long time. It's not the first ever, but to become more progressive with age, which is a very encouraging statistic.
I don't think millennials are. I think Gen X is.
That was not according to a report I read just a couple years ago, that the amount of progressives...
I could be massively wrong then.
Yeah. I wasn't aware of anyone making the claim that Gen X people at 18 versus their age now, that there are more progressives among them than before. It's usually conservative. We can look.
Yeah, because, I know that's not the case for me, and I'm Gen X. So.
For sure. Yeah, for sure it's not for you. We've got, while Matt's checking that, we've got Eris 385. The New York DA does indictments Monday through Wednesday, according to a former Manhattan DA lawyer on Midas Touch. So Trump and his lawyers is guessing on Tuesday, with Monday the court processing the indictment order. That's an interesting bit of insight if true. I don't know that for sure. But that is a very interesting tidbit indeed. Bum, 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 bum. And it makes sense. It does make sense, because like I said, there are elements of things that seem speculative, and knowing when, but from a leak was strange to me. Larry Fishman says, Matt, America doesn't have a real political or economic left. The corporate Democrats are right of center, and both parties are owned by our glorious capitalist oligarch masters.
Oh my God.
Matt, come on.
Oh,
how come you didn't know that before this?
Yes.
Larry's a good dude.
We should have a whole night where it's just, let's pretend that Matt didn't understand how somebody else fucking views this. It doesn't, left is relative. The fact that it's not left enough to suit you or somebody else doesn't mean I was remotely fucking wrong.
Yeah. To speak in your country in the terms your countries have adopted is not something we need to jump on like that. But Larry, I'm positive that you gave that in good faith, because you've been a good dude so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. RPG Debunk says, Matt, have you ever dressed up as Satan for Halloween? You have the perfect goatee for it. If not, I think it would be cool. Hashtag go tie shoelaces, Jimmy. Fun fact, I don't like shoelaces, so I wear shoes with closed elastic bands instead of shoelaces.
Fun fact, I don't have a goatee.
Right now.
Don't do me wrong, I have in the past, but
yeah.
Typically for Satan, what you want is not a goatee, but a Van Dyke. And I've never had a Van Dyke.
Typically for Satan, what you want? Okay, I've got to look this up now. Oh, is that where you've got mustache and then pointy?
It's so a Van Dyke is pointy, I think.
Yes, I see.
That may be a subcategory.
It seems like the Yeah, the mustache being kind of this, and then a little gap between the mustache and then the
yes, the
pointed
Van
beard.
Dyke beard is generally pointier, thinner sideburns, if at all, and a mustache, which may or may not be curled.
See, I would have used the word goatee as well, or because one, I think there is a pretty big variety, but two, I thought the whole thing was that Satan is a goat, and one of his features is the facial hair of a goat, and that's where the word goatee comes from. I would have thought. I am looking at some devilish also goatees right now.
I don't think I'm not even convinced that that's the correct etymology for the goatee.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
Could have made it up. It seems right. I bet I could convince a less skeptical person. Some of goatees are often people are somewhat mean about goatees, but I've just looked up goatees, and the models that these goatees are on are very, very handsome. Very handsome. Goatee etymology. Come off images.
I just found 18 beard styles on one side here. That's goatee beard, a royal beard, a goatee without a mustache, a petite goatee, a Van Dyke beard, a short box beard, a Balbo beard, an anchor beard, and then mustaches. Oval beard styles are chevron, 3-day stubble. That's not a beard. Horseshoe mustache. That's not a beard.
So
Original
it turns out.
Oh my God. Did you know lasagna is a sandwich?
But you put cheese and stuff on top of it too. That seems more like
So if I have a piece of bread,
yeah,
and I put a slice of ham and cheese and mustard and another piece of bread, that's a sandwich, right?
Yeah.
If I take the top piece of bread off and just make it an open-faced sandwich, it's still a sandwich.
I guess.
I'm just saying. We can have that one another time.
In my mind, you were actually suggesting you then put you leave that piece of bread on, and then you put on another piece of ham and another piece of cheese.
Does that make it not a sandwich anymore if you did that?
We would have to define sandwich, because it definitely removes the utility of, if someone had said, what's the utility of a sandwich? I would say being able to hold it in your hand, protect the bread, protecting the wet stuff from your hand.
Yeah. Yes. That's a traditional thing, but we got to define sandwich, but not tonight, because that turned into a multi-hour debate the last time.
Goatee is the tuft, basically because of its resemblance to the tuft on a goat chin, and it apparently is the case that a goatee only refers to this hair. The mustache, whether you have a mustache or not, is not a part of a goatee. So it sounds like a Van Dyke includes a goatee.
According to Wikipedia, there's debate over whether this style is correctly called a goatee or a Van Dyke, that style being facial hair incorporating hair on the chin but not the cheeks.
Very interesting. We're going to get a goat on the channel next week. We will find out.
You've already got the goat.
Well, okay.
I'm right here.
Okay. $20 from. Was that your attempt at doing a bump on your desk?
No, it was not a rim shot. It was just a grooving beat for the goat.
Hang on, I might have a rim shot on. I don't know if you can hear when I do this. Did that come through?
No.
I can just hold my.
Did that come through?
Yours did. Mine. I had to hold my headphone up. There we go. I also have air horn.
That's the sound Jimmy wants when he makes a joke. But this is the sound that actually happens.
This is rural Texas. Crickets are always a thing, whether I want them to be or not.
They're a great audience.
Paul Meixner says, I watched the recent debate between Matt and Perfect Dawa, and there was a super chat there commenting on Matt's appearance. I'm not sure what to think about that sort of thing. Even if it's complimentary, it feels off.
Well, I don't know what it said about my appearance, but I pay a little bit of attention to chat, like at the beginning and end or when I'm bored, but I didn't see the commenting on my appearance. There's only like 2 people who I give a fuck what they think of my appearance. 3, my doctor, in case my appearance has something to do with me being off, me, and Arden.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Though you did allow me to request you make some changes when we were taking some photos once.
Yes, I'm happy for you, to get your thoughts. But when it comes to day, if I like it and Arden likes it and my doctor thinks it's healthy, I don't give a fuck if Jimmy doesn't like it.
Yeah. Actually, it was the opposite. You were inclined to shave off your stubble, and it was at a handsome length, and I suggested you keep it for the photo.
Yeah, that's fair. Actually, I go back and forth on whether I like cheek beard stuff or not. But I do think I prefer it when I trim the base beard down to about the same level. Although now we're talking about nothing useful and it's getting late.
If it helps, I did close lines finally because I just saw it's 10:35 and went, okay, this has been enough.
Yes, my girlfriend's been sick for the last few days. I'd like to go spend quality time with her. So
we'll knock these out. Sheridan Bernasconi says, "Scene, if I'm going to be charged with murder for having an abortion, then I should just murder my rapist." I am not allowed to endorse that, but I think you know how I feel. Actually, I'm a humanist. I don't ever endorse murder, even if there are times I have feelings which defy my humanism, and I acknowledge them and try to not let them get the better of me.
While I understand the sentiment, I'm also actively opposed to that from the standpoint of, I'm not necessarily a pacifist. I think there may be circumstances wherein the right thing to do is for someone's life to end. I don't know necessarily what those are, and I'm against capital punishment on principle for a number of other reasons. But the biggest reason is that I don't think the system is sufficient to the to the punishment. I don't think we have enough of a guarantee of how guilty someone is, and enough of that someone is guilty, and enough of an understanding about the broader consequences to justify that. But I understand this notion of vengeance. But in this case, if I would say that if the world gets to the point where someone's being charged with murder for having an abortion after they were raped, that the best thing that could probably happen for society is to force that to go to trial, not to murder the rapist. But it's sad. I wish that the person here isn't being victimized over and over again. But you may need for that to actually hit the courts in order for people to finally go, hang on a second, this isn't what we meant. Because I've asked the pro-life people before, and I've watched other people ask the pro-life people before, do they think that abortion is murder? Yes. What should the penalty be for abortion? Most of them have an incredibly difficult time saying that the penalty for abortion should be the same as it is for murder. There are some that are like, oh, it should be the same as it is for murder. Okay, does that apply to the doctor that performed it, or the person who performed it, or the person who sought it? Because the person who sought it is the one that motivates the whole thing. So is it going to be felony murder? Is it going to be, whatever? Most of them that I've seen and encountered have a really hard time saying, yes, a rape victim should be charged with murder and sent to prison for life for aborting the outcome of that rape. So I get it. I'm with you on, the frustration at all of this, but strategically and humanistically, as a result of my secular humanism, I'm actually just straight up opposed to that.
Yeah, for me, it'd be more. Go on.
Just the last little thing. That said, if this scenario played out, and I was on the jury that was going to determine whether or not that person should be convicted of murder for killing their rapist, I would be a prime candidate for jury nullification.
There you go. Yeah, that's a pretty good way to summarize it up. I can simultaneously be aware that my humanism and values cannot abide supporting something like murdering somebody in response to that, while also acknowledging that an empathy I would have for anyone who felt like murdering their rapist, as well as being capable of feeling like murdering the rapist of somebody I loved. I can be in both positions. In fact, one of the useful reasons to even figure out what your philosophical, I suppose, ideology is, where you come down on issues, is to check yourself. There are times where I have gone, this way which I would like to act, I know I shouldn't, because I know when I really sit back and think about it, this does not reflect secular humanism, despite the fact that right now I feel very inclined to harm this person in this way for this reason. It's actually a pretty useful utility. Anyway, Shannon Mick says, Jimmy. Oh, actually, I'm going to give the one example real quick. Years ago, people got mad at me because I said, if my dog Sammy, who I love more than any other person, and since Sammy has passed, that has clearly turned out to be true, because I miss Sammy like I've missed no one that I've ever loved that was human. But anyway, Sammy, my dog, who I have loved more than any other creature, if she and Ben Shapiro, who I am so opposed to in so many ways, are both drowning in a pool, secular humanism and my values would dictate I save Ben Shapiro if I only have time to save one of the two, because he is a human, even though I'm so opposed to him. People then took that to mean I would save Ben Shapiro. And I'm sorry, I wouldn't say, if it was a choice between Sammy and some people I like, I would fail to be a good secular humanist in that moment. I would fail to live up to my values, and I would save Sammy. Like, these are, I just can't stand when people take words you say and try to add more to them when they're so bad at it. Whether or not I am a perfect secular humanist and recognize that in that scenario, Ben Shapiro is the right person to save if I have the two. This was also talking about how humanism is necessarily speciesist or speciest and all that sort of stuff. Whether or not I recognize the correct answer from that perspective versus what I, an imperfect human, would do are two completely different things.
I'm not even convinced that you're correct that secular humanism would hold as a default that because Ben Shapiro is human, you save him over some other animal. I'm not convinced that that's what. Yeah, I don't know that that's what humanism would hold.
I don't know if we could do it in a short amount of time, but I don't know how you would defend it doesn't hold that position. And I think the consequences of that conversation will be a bunch of vegans calling us both hypocrites.
No. What I'm saying is that I'm not aware of anything in any of the secular humanist manifesto that necessarily requires one place human beings above other animals. It doesn't really, none of the secular humanist manifestos that I'm familiar with actually spend any real time on like quantifying values. I think you can argue the case, but I don't think you can be I don't think it's necessary.
With no direct example, I agree. However, it seems the obvious conclusion of if the evaluation, as I've heard you summarize before others too, is well-being, and that the well-being we are concerned with is human well-being, then it would be the case that in that scenario, go on.
It's your well-being
mm-hmm.
is part of the equation,
mm-hmm.
and your well-being after saving Ben Shapiro instead of the dog you love, that has to factor into the equation as well.
I agree. And so one could balance it. Maybe there's a number of people who could have that similar amount of love that we could say then the grief offsets. However, the concept of grief versus death, it does seem like death, like how many grieving of a dog equals the lack of well-being that death brings. It'd be hard to quantify, but it's certainly a large number. To me, that seems certainly obvious. But again,
yeah, I don't know. We'd have to
as an imperfect person, you should know, some of you people in the chat that are like, I definitely pick the dog. I'd pick the dog over you. You're strangers. And I loved that dog. I am an incomplete person now that Sammy is dead. And even Dexter has created a new thing in my life that there will be a hole when he is gone, but I don't think it'll be a hole like Sammy has left. I feel incomplete without that dog. Anyway, so just making sure you all know that in this equation that where you're going, obviously pick the dog. The imperfect me would pick the dog over you. You're all strangers to me. Anyway, and Sammy is spelled with an I, just so everybody knows. Doesn't matter. She certainly won't be offended that you are misspelling her name. Oh, I didn't read that last one. Shannon Mick said, Jimmy, you didn't dampen my enthusiasm like I feared. I'm just excited that something seems to be happening finally. Fergal, Burgle, Manergal, Burgle. I think you shouldn't be excited. I think you should dampen your enthusiasm because the thing for which you are excited probably doesn't have a positive net outcome. But I hope I'm wrong and that some of the scenarios we entertain tonight that would mean I'm wrong play out. I don't think they will. But, you know, I'm not mad at you that I failed to dampen your enthusiasm. I just think you should dampen it. Geodude628, are you feeling left out that we're not alternating? I just realized I just went in autopilot.
No, I'm good. I'm listening and chiming in when I have something potentially substantive.
Tight. Geodude628, Brian Tyler Cohen was part of the 2020 Biden campaign. It's the only reason he's gotten access to people at the Biden admin. He's an establishment plant. I would need to see a lot more information. Him getting access and being embraced by the campaign. And what is implicit when you say a person is an establishment plant is in there is some conspiracy to go, hey, we want you to go and appeal to some of the more progressive left. We know they like you or would like you, and you should go secretly work on our behalf to bring them into our camp. That's a bit conspiratorial for my taste.
Yeah, I don't know what anybody means by someone being an establishment plant on YouTube. Does that mean that anything he's said has been remotely inaccurate or incorrect or unjust? If, you know, I could see someone saying, Tucker Carlson, he's a plant, by, you know, right-wing oligarchs or whatever they are, because he's just flat out willing to lie and say whatever. That I can get. That I can see. I don't see how someone can be a plant, an establishment plant, when what we're talking about is they're in a position where they talk on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just too conspiratorial for me. But send the information you think that makes your case, or call in with it. On a political night. Tomorrow's the Sunday show. Everybody tune in for the Sunday show. Send us your theistic debaters, the people on Twitter who respond to everything you do. Send us your hungry, send us your debaters. We want some good quality calls. Again, we're not saying trick anyone into calling us. Tell them where they're calling, who they're calling. Be honest about it. But we would love it if our audience would participate in helping us gather calls of significant quality. Soap and Clay, a good friend of the channel, says +1 for furry stream. If we get 5,000 patrons by the end of March, I will do a furry stream. I'll get a fursuit, but it's going to take 5,000 patrons, not 500, which is what the chess tournament with Matt unlocks. If we get that by the end of March, 5,000, I'll give you a furry episode on the line. It's not going to be a permanent show, but we'll give you an episode. And I say 5,000 because I know it won't happen and because I don't want to. Paul Meixner says, I don't know if they're still active, but let's say this is on behalf of Donuts. I've seen Donuts around not too long ago, but I hope that Donuts returns if they haven't been around in a minute. Step for $9.99 says, well, apparently I know more about what lies deep at the bottom of the ocean than what goes or does not go through the mind of many of our friends in deep rural America. Very insightful stream. There's something about that call that is off. There's details missing, and I don't know what they are. So I wouldn't say that you should consider that representative of a wide I live in the rural country. These people are thinking about politics a lot. It's not Georgia, it's rural Texas, but they're thinking about politics a lot. I live close to non-rural. Maybe that makes a difference, but I don't know where Oakwood or whatever it was called.
There's the old joke that rural people think that Roe versus Wade are two ways of crossing a creek.
I wish that was still true, that there was some place.
It is for some.
Yeah, maybe. Magnum QWQ says, Jimmy, my little brother was diagnosed with autism early in life, and I was not. Me and him are extremely similar. Do you know what I can do in terms of getting a diagnosis without insurance, if at all? Without insurance, no. I first of all, even if you had insurance, I would tell you there's like an 80% chance your insurance won't cover it. I was made aware how rare it was for my insurance to cover it after it had already happened. So no, I don't really have good advice on getting a diagnosis. But I will tell you this. If you are seeing yourself in there, the main reason to get a diagnosis to me is, one, it helps you accept things about yourself. And granted, I can't give you that. But two, if you think there are things you need to work on, you don't need a diagnosis to go to Amazon and get the workbooks and see if they're useful to you. You can go get an autism workbook. Some of them are more designated toward children, but there's a couple of good adult ones. But I'll tell you, the autism workbooks didn't do as much for me as the GAD workbooks, which I'm not saying everybody with autism has generalized anxiety disorder. I just don't understand how they couldn't. But the GAD books tend to overlap well with workbooks for people. So ask yourself why you want a diagnosis. And if it's not right now the time to go get it, if the answer is because I want to know how to work on, like what I should work on, go. They're like $20 to $40, I think, these workbooks. It's been a while since I bought one because I've finished the last one that I was doing work in like 2 years ago or something. But I think they're somewhere between $20 and $40, certainly cheaper than going. And if what's important is being able to get that work done and stuff, you don't need a diagnosis to get a workbook. You only need a diagnosis if medication is required, or for work, you need some sort of ADA exception or something like that. That may be the means by which, if you have insurance, you can get insurance to approve it, that you are specifically seeking disability exemptions. But that's another thing altogether. But workbooks, you don't need a diagnosis to order them. You can just order them. $9.99 from Nicholas. As a trans person, it's frustrating when some people who consider me a friend tell me they're going to vote Republican because of money. I never know what to say to that. Yes, I have people like that in my life. I have people who have begun dating people who don't care about Roe v. Wade, don't care about queer rights. It's just about the stock market for them. And somehow they think that you can preserve some nobility in there. And I've seen people who, in the interest of being in a relationship instead of being alone, have prioritized that, and I just can't relate. There's a certain line that if you're going to vote for what is now becoming genocidal, how you can do that and just go, well, but the stock market matters more than the lives of fucking people. And by the way, it isn't necessarily a through line. Yes, lowering regulations does usually increase the stock market, increase a business's ability to do to make money. And then a couple years later, trains derail and inflation happens and banks fail, and you just get to pretend that the new guy who's in, it was his problem, that it was his fault, even though you can tie directly those activities to regulations being lifted. It's some fucked up bullshit. And you should definitely evaluate your friendships with people who don't think that your existence as a trans person matters. Now, I'm not saying don't be friends with, I'm very much an advocate for being friends with bigots, because sometimes that's who changes your mind. That's who changed mine. But definitely weigh that. $6.99 Canadian from Rebus Win. I totally put 4-mouth instead of 4-month on purpose. I am definitely not sending the super chat because I'm embarrassed in any way. Hashtag 4-mouth is the way. Rebus, you shouldn't be embarrassed. We had a good chuckle over that. $5 Australian from your friendly neighborhood Steve. Jimmy, you need to make Paul plus Shannon a tiny coffee table just big enough for one mug, maybe two, no room for clutter, basically a coaster with legs. Okay. That is funny.
Don't spend your time on it because Paul won't allow it in the house.
We'll call it a side table or something with that design. El Jason says, hi, Matt. I watched your show with Dave Warnock earlier. Ed Brayton was a friend of mine as well. I haven't met any of the Austin area folks yet, but I hope to soon. Keep up the good work. Go fuck yourself, Jimmy. Do you think Paul would accept, what if I invented a coffee table that every night at, let's say, 3 a.m., it had a hinge mechanism and the table itself lifted up and dumped anything that was left on it onto the floor, thereby creating a system in which you must, before the night is over, before 3 a.m., clear the coffee table or you will cause some sort of mess, which will be more difficult to clean, thereby incentivizing that the coffee table not be left in use. What do you think Paul would think of that idea?
I don't know.
I'm gonna pass it by Paul.
I find it intriguing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know.
I'm gonna try that. $5 from I Got Cookies. New tier for channel membership to get out of slow-mo. Don't be a slow boy. Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to give Clark the satisfaction, but I appreciate the suggestion. Eddie Dean says, here's $5 for Jimmy bringing the word tight back. I've been doing it a lot. I'm glad somebody noticed. Taishi Kojima says, what do you think of the probability of indictment helping Trump in the long run? It seems he thrives when surrounded by drama. We're all doomed. I mean, we're both speculating, but what do you think? Is the net going to be help or hurt Trump?
At this point, I can't. I want to be more cynical, but I think it's going to help him.
Yeah, I am more inclined to see a way this helps him.
I mean,
yeah.
The guy is already what I would consider the absolute bottom of the barrel. Yeah. He should have been indicted 1,000 times over. He should have been never elected. There's literally no person who genuinely cares about the truth, gives a shit about reality, and knows the facts of reality, who thinks a single positive thought about him. The best ones of them who are pro him just hate the other people worse. They just want to own the libs, or they hate Biden. That's the way this goes. And so what else? I mean, nothing sticks to this guy because it's a cult of personality. And so if they arrest him this week, the narrative is going to be about that. And how this really wasn't a thing. And this isn't an issue. And another, the federal people just decided not to prosecute and everything else. And when they don't come up with any sort of penalty other than perhaps a fine for this, I think it weakens some of the public perception of this for the other cases like Georgia. There was something that happened a long time ago in the secular community. And I think I was right. But somebody else thought I was very wrong. And that was when Michael Newdow sued to remove "In God We Trust" from the money as the national motto. My friend at the time, who was a lawyer for American Atheist, said that this was a mistake on Newdow's part, that by raising the case, especially when there wasn't a favorable court that was likely to give him a favorable outcome, he was creating precedent against the other cases that they would like to bring, the American Atheists and others would like to bring. And I agreed with him, and still do. But we disagreed on this other aspect, was whether or not there was a method by which we could fight "In God We Trust" by talking about Congress, the Establishment Clause, that by virtue of Congress going through and saying, this is a religion, this is a religion, this is a religion, this is not, this is a religion, this one's not, this is a religion, this one's not, for the purpose of taxes and whether or not you get a 501c3 religious exemption, that violates the Establishment Clause. And he and I disagreed on that. I don't know. And Andrew Seidel didn't seem to, when we talked about this, didn't seem to necessarily think either one of us could be determined as right. But, lawyers now, the quote, it depends. That's the foundation of every law there. And so I don't know if it'll help him or not. I hope it doesn't. But goddamn, everything else seems to have helped him.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, it's easier to conceive of the ways that it helps him. I don't know that it helps him win the presidency. Again, this presumption that it's going to landslide him to the nomination or to the presidency, I find to be foolish. That it might give him an easier road, that it might shut out any chance somebody like DeSantis had at edging him out. Not that I'm sure I want that either. There's many ways in which DeSantis is conceivably worse than DeSantis is an out loud person who actually holds the ideological beliefs he says, not just on the basis of seeing them advantageous, but actually hates the people he's trying to legislate against. So it's everything has relative value, and it's hard to make an assessment, but I'm coming down on team probably helps. Anyway, 20 euro from Rebecca Borg. Jimmy, I was baking and thought of you. I made a cake, JK. Oh, I get it. Was watching your purity culture video. Heard you say a holy instead of assholey because YouTube, and remembered your frequent use of baking as a euphemism. I actually just think a-hole is funnier than asshole. I genuinely do. I think it's a funnier word. It sounds funnier to me. So I didn't do that as censorship. I'm being 1000% authentic here. I think calling someone an a-hole is funnier than calling someone an asshole, personally. Matt, thoughts? Just kidding. You don't have to give any thoughts on that.
I don't know. I think there's something quirky about a-hole that might make it funnier in the right context, but
yeah. Taishi Kojima says, Matt, you've committed a lot of blasphemy in the past, but to call lasagna a sandwich is truly unholy. Guzzle cheese, Jimmy. Remember, it's vegan cheese. I will happily guzzle cheese.
You can't, you just, all right, that which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. All you did was engage in a little name calling.
Doing something unholy. There's got to be a way to fit lasagna into that. Lasagna. I'll figure it out later. Ares 385 says, thanks for the stream. It's been enjoyable. I found this channel. I found the channel like this and whatever AEX is. Probably a different one for Atheist Experience. AXP is the usual shorthand for that. A little while ago through Forrest and have enjoyed the content. I can imagine. That's the order you'd probably want to discover us in. We're the dessert. It's okay, Jimmy, says Zakian. I would pick Sammy over myself, and I've never even met Sammy. But that's not even something I addressed. I loved Sammy so much, I might have been inclined to, like you would with some family members, I might be inclined to, I don't think you're ever realistically choosing to die to save, but to put my life at risk to try and save Sammy, I imagine is something I would have done. I definitely feel that way more strongly now that she's gone, because I would do a lot to bring her back. Paul Meixner says,
there's not a non-human animal in the history of the world that I would sacrifice myself for, anybody I care about for, and probably not any human being.
But put yourself at risk, not choose to die, but would you do something dangerous to save an animal?
Sure. Would I take a risk? Yeah.
That's where I was coming down. I don't know whether or not, I can't say I would have died. Like if somehow I could have given her my liver and she'd live a few more years, because she was already, realistically, there's only a couple years left, but I definitely would have, that dogs live so much shorter than humans is kind of bullshit. Anyway, Paul Meixner says, by the way, I love Dexter. I truly do. And I don't want anyone to think Dexter isn't loved. I have never loved anything or anyone like I've loved Sammy. Sammy was the best dog anybody's ever invented.
I don't think we need any more details, man. We're approaching
that's not what I mean.
Territory.
I just mean that that is the sole, I'm going to use that word to annoy you, that I felt the most attached to on this planet.
Why would SOLE annoy me?
Because I didn't mean SOLE. Paul hereby gives you the thumbs up. Go coffee table wild for Paul Meixner. Well, Paul, that's a great news. I don't know who you are. Oh, I get it. You're named Paul. And so you give I got it. All right. Never mind. I'll shut up. I was going to say, I don't know that you can speak for Paul. Was what I was going to say. And we end with Ting Zing sending a smiley face with $10 on it. The best looking $10 I've ever seen. The main reason why I bring up how much I loved her is I don't cry about any human's death. Genuinely. I love my grandma. I don't cry about her having passed. If I needed to cry in almost any situation, I could do so easily thinking about Sammy. In fact, it usually means when I just start thinking about her that I have to put effort into not crying. We actually just got one from Pancaking On, who just sent the word the. Why that screen is not popping back up, I don't know, but it was just the word the. Pancaking On, I think, feels represented without it being on screen. Anyway, Matt, anything you want to tell people, or just see you in a few hours since we're like not that far away from the Sunday show now?
I think that's probably all I would really say at this point is see you in a few hours. Thanks for hanging out.
No Valvegate just sent $5 saying, too much to get into one super chat, but after giving it a bit of thought, I'd say lasagna would be more akin to a cake than a sandwich. How do you feel about that?
I think that somebody doesn't understand how to argue that the very notion that something might be closer to a cake than a sandwich doesn't mean it's still not a sandwich.
That's a good point.
That's why I made it.
But I will say, I'd more comfortably call a lasagna a type of cake than a sandwich. Oh my goodness. We definitely have to extend the show for a minute for this because we just got $100 super chat. I'll even make sure the screen comes back up. Thank you.
Oh, you can do the whole screen.
Extremely, I just had to manually do it. Couldn't use my shortcuts. Extremely generous from the Wandering Toe, $100. Listen, chat, support what you love or it may go away. Thank you guys for everything you do on the line. I couldn't think of a better sentiment to go out on, so I say we go out on that one. Matt, I will see you in like 14 hours.
Word. Take it easy, everybody.
You could have said tight, whatever.